Mayor Troopman,
Here.
Vice Mayor Samaria,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson Sardella,
Here.
Commissioner Tudor,
Here.
Commissioner Wise.
We're going to stand for the pledge, but after the pledge, if everybody could remain standing for a moment of silence, I'll explain at that time. Thank you. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, undivided, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence for the 31 people who tragically lost their lives this weekend in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, and as well as those injured. It is so sad to see these events are becoming all too frequent. Our hearts go out to the families of the victims. Perhaps our community can learn that hateful rhetoric matters. I hope you will join me in choosing kindness and support to your fellow community members, and also all the support we can lend to those who have passed. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, are there any addition, withdrawals, or deletions to the agenda?
Yes. I want to table 9A until we get the bills that are conform to our attorney contract. And then I want to add to get the permission from the commission to have my 9/11 collection, which I have annually at the rec center from September 1st to 30th. And also, since we as a village really don't do any ceremonies on Memorial Day and stuff, I want to see if I can get the village to okay, like I did last year, September 8th, which is a Sunday, to have...
Okay, and rather than, could you just tell me the item which you'd like to add, please? Okay. So under new business, you have 3 items, but you want to add a 4th item, which is under 12. It would be under 12.
Okay. One is I want to table 9A. Ordinance 9A.
Okay, that has... Okay, you can make a motion to do that. Why don't we start with one at a time? You want to make a motion to table 9A?
Yep, until we get bills that conform to our attorney contract.
Okay. At this point, is there a second for that motion?
Just a question to second. Is it for the discussion of whether or not...
He wants to remove the ordinance completely from second reading.
Right,
We
but
advertise
I want to know which bills, like up to what date of bills that he's waiting for.
It's in reference to talking to all the attorney bills, but especially the June bill.
We've not received the June bill.
I received the June bill. That's one of the reasons why I want to talk about it. We're being overcharged.
Just have a question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Because there's a motion on the floor, just to be clear. You want to table the item indefinitely?
No, into the next commission meeting.
Okay.
That's where all the commissioners can look at the bills if they haven't already done so.
Okay. I'm going to ask if there's a second for that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Before we vote on the item, I'd just like to make a point of discussion. We have a second reading on the ordinance. Discussion can be done at that time. I'm not sure why we'd pull an ordinance that we already advertised. And we had this discussion last time, and we all agreed to 15,000. So I'm not quite
Yes.
sure why this is being
Okay.
tabled.
The reason why is because I didn't have the June bill at the time of the 15,000. I got the June bill, and I looked at the June bill, and I'm not happy with the June bill.
I reviewed the June bill as well, and I see nothing out of the ordinary on it. So I believe, Paul, do you have the... I gave you that? Yeah, if you could, please. We'll have the June bill if you want to keep the ordinance on, and we can pass it down, and you guys can look at it and review it if you'd like.
Okay.
We can discuss the item at the time.
That's what I'm saying. So there's a vote now to remove the item. That is what the motion on the floor is, and there's a second on that motion. So at this point, if there's no further discussion, we can vote on it. Commissioner Tudor, do you have anything you want to add? Everybody else has said something, so.
If I may, we have to re-advertise.
At a cost?
Yes. Because this is the second hit.
Given some, I think it probably would be a better use of time if we actually discuss it when the item comes up. That way, everything any concerns any commissioners have can come out at that time.
Okay, so there's a motion and the second on the floor. You've made your comment, so we have to vote to remove the item. So let's just have a vote to remove the item. Since it's an ordinance, I believe we have to do a roll call. Is that correct for the removal of an item? Attorney Rodriguez, do we have to have a roll call for that? Now. To remove the...
Yes, take a vote.
Okay, so we'll have a roll call. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Truppen,
No.
Vice Mayor Samaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson Sardella,
Just a clarification before I make my point, because we've said two things here. I believe Commissioner Tudor said it would be make a better point if we discuss the item, but
Right,
we're
but
asking to remove it.
This is
at
the
this
motion
point.
on the floor at the moment is to remove the item.
Okay. No.
Commissioner Tudor, this is a vote to remove the item.
Yeah, after giving it some thought, I'm going to have to vote no, because I think this is an item we should discuss, actually.
Okay, so 9A stays on. Okay, the other item you want to do is 911, correct?
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
One quick thing I want to clarify. Paul just brought in what we had. It's the June or July, August bill. So I'll have to run over to Village Hall to get June. So if we can just take a brief break right before that ordinance, I'll run over and get it.
No problem. Okay, thank you, sir. So we now had a second issue. You wanted to have an item, a discussion item on 911.
No, I want to get permission from the village, as I always get every single year, but this is the first time I am a commissioner, that I want to get a permission to have my 9/11 collection at the rec center.
Right, so can we call it a discussion on 911 Rec Center by Commissioner
Whatever you wanna
Samaria?
call it, Yes.
Okay, so is there any objection to having that item added? Assuming we have time, it'll be at the last, it'll be on item, let's see,
And hopefully it's going to be able to be heard before.
Maybe
next commission.
12D?
12D, correct. Is there no objection?
No objection.
No objection, sir?
No.
Okay. 12-day discussion on 9/11 from Commissioner Samaria. Okay.
And then the other one is the hold the ceremony 9/11 memorial ceremony September 8th, Sunday.
You can do it all under 12D, okay?
I'll do it.
At that time. All right, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes.
I received this paper from Vice Mayor Samaria that asked to distribute to the commissioners.
No problem.
Am I allowed?
Yes, please. Okay.
Just for the minutes, can you state what it is that's being circulated, please?
It is a note from Rosemary regarding public speaking and the mics. And that is what is being distributed. It says for those speaking is not difficult, it's really easy. For those who are naturally soft-spoken, a device has been provided to alleviate the problem. Basically, she's telling us to talk into the mic so everybody can hear. Is the gist of the thing. Okay. Anybody who wants to see it is welcome to take my copy and read it if they'd like. Okay. Attorney Rodriguez, I have an issue with item 10B. I wish to renew my objections to item 10B for the same reasons stated last two meetings. I would also like to add that the Commission has voted on to wait to the AG's opinion on 2 occasions, and the Vice Mayor continues to disregard the will of the Commission on that issue.
It's 11B, Mayor.
I'm sorry,
11B.
11B, sorry. Also, our attorney has already provided her legal opinion on the illegalities of the matter, which Vice Mayor Samaria is also disregarding. So I'm going to turn this over to the attorney.
So first and foremost, can everyone hear me with this microphone?
No, we're closer to you.
Now it's on.
It's as long as the orange is on, it's on.
So at the June meeting, this item first came up and the commission voted to table it until we received an Attorney General opinion from the State Attorney General's office. Then in July, it was brought up again, and after much discussion, Vice Mayor Samaria, you elected to move it to discussion items, so you could, I'm sorry, not discussion items,
No,
to
no.
commissioner comments.
No, I did not.
And
Vice Mayor, if you allow the attorney to finish speaking, then
She
I'll
asked
be
me a
happy to
question.
turn it over.
She asked me a question.
I reviewed the tape before I came here today, so when I saw this on the agenda, I assumed that because there's a deadline for the agenda items, you submitted it just in case the opinion came back in time.
No. According to ethics, I've been told I can continue to put the item on, and I did not remove the item on it. I said that I was going to give my commission comments at the end. The item is not being removed. It will be continued to be brought up until it's either voted down for no discussion, or that we have the discussion.
Okay, because, again, the vote of the commission on this item was to table this until they received guidance from
Question?
the state.
Okay, question, Mr. Jenny sent out. Hope I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. When you made this motion, when she made this motion, you led us to believe that it was going to be 30 days, that it was going to be held at the July meeting. Did you make your motion based upon that you were going to think that it was going to be in a July meeting, or did you make the motion that it was going to be based upon until you get a response? Because
it's probably twofold. I didn't expect it to take
That's
as long, but I made the motion based on the fact that I need the background. I need something in order to have a full discussion here as a commission. I don't want to not have that when we're having that discussion. But to answer your question, I did not believe it would take as long as it's
the
taking.
motion is based upon that.
Okay, and to, just now that we're in the sunshine, so everyone's aware,
Close it, you want.
yesterday morning, I received a call from an administrator in the State Attorney General's office regarding calls Vice Mayor Samaria was making to the State Attorney General's office about the pendency of this opinion. I assured them, can you hear me? I assured them that I would inform the commission to direct the communications through me. That's what was requested of me, and I did that. After that, Vice Mayor Samaria responded to me saying that he was going to continue to contact them. Later in the day yesterday, I received a phone call from a very senior official in the State Attorney General's office. They were very unhappy. I spent the entire call apologizing on behalf of the commission and the village. And the word that was used to describe the messages you left with various individuals in the State Attorney General's office was nasty. That's the word that they use. I'm just relaying, so it's in the sunshine, the call I received.
Do you have proof of
May
your
I finish?
conversation? Do you have proof of your conversation?
Vice Mayor, if you allow her to finish, I'll be happy to have you speak after that rebut.
I spent the rest of the call apologizing, and I received confirmation that they will still issue an opinion, that they are working on it, that it's in queue, it's not ready. But they reiterated that they are very senior and respected attorneys in this state, and nobody from the village of Biscayne Park should be calling them and leaving the messages that they are receiving. So, in the interest of transparency, I wanted to relay this in the sunshine to everyone, that those are the phone calls I had yesterday on this issue. And with respect to the pendency of the opinion, leaving messages like that with various officials in the State Attorney General's office does not help us close this out any sooner. And that's all I have to say about that. That's the factual update. Those are the communications I've had on this item in the past 24 hours with Tallahassee.
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
First off, what proof? I want to know the proof that the conversation that you had, because I will tell you the conversation that I called up. I called up and asked if I can have somebody from the Attorney General's office to contact me and reference an agenda item that I have. That was the message. There was no harassing calls. I want to see I want the names of, you're making serious accusations. There's a lot of things that you have been doing that is not too kosher. I don't believe the conversation that you're saying right now, and because I know what I said to each of the individuals. I left one message, basically say it, and I spoke to an individual, and they said they will get back to me. That's all the message I asked, for somebody to call me back. So I don't know where you're coming up with this crap about what you're telling me that they said, because I know what I said.
What was communicated to me by a very senior official the second time they contacted me yesterday. The first time, it was an administrator. The second time, it was a very senior attorney in the State Attorney General's office. The word they used to describe your messages was nasty. That's not my word. That's their word. And they informed me that you have been calling and issuing demands to the State Attorney General's office about this opinion. And we can't. And then this goes for everyone on the commission. We have to respect the process. That just can't happen. And I smoothed it over, but We just can't be doing that.
As a commission, I am allowed to contact the Attorney General's office. I spoke to ethics about it. So before I do anything, I'm not like you. I check with ethics before I do anything.
In the interest of keeping this meeting going and getting to village business, I'm not responding to your character attacks. I'm trying to remain really measured about the facts. I received a call yesterday, and that's what they told me. The second time they contacted me yesterday, that's what was said to me. That's the truth. And I'm conveying it to the commission in the sunshine so everybody knows. I don't think that's helping getting the opinion out any faster.
Well, the item's not being tabled, so you can forget it.
Okay, so once again, we have voted on this twice. And the fact that somebody keeps bringing it on
Right.
indicates to me that you're not listening to either the attorney. Are you getting legal advice from somebody else?
No. The item can continue to be brought up, and all I'm asking is for a discussion. If this commission really wants to know about the truth, you can vote my discussion down after we have the discussion. I do not understand why people do not want to have a discussion about this item and the cancellation of the March 5th meeting. I have a right to continue to bring up the item until you decide to either have a second or not, or have a discussion. So I can bring up the item again.
Attorney Rodriguez, we voted, I'm sorry.
Just to reiterate, my point in making the motion that I made is because I'd rather have one full discussion with all information, all commissioners having knowledge of how ethics looks at this, how the state looks at this, and not prolonging it, because even if we have a discussion now, when their report does come out, we will have to have another discussion depending on how it goes. So that was my reason. My second question or statement, is there any way possible for us to get something from the state in writing as an update on when they expect anything, rather than us just sitting and waiting and trying to figure out what the turnaround time is?
I can request that. When I spoke with them yesterday, the second time, thank you. When I spoke with them yesterday the second time, I tried to circle back to that to make sure they're still issuing it, and they said they are. They're working on it. So I can follow up and get. Now, it won't be a date certain. They don't like to do that because it's discretionary timeline in the first place for them. But I can follow up and get an update and see if there's any chance we can have it before the next regular meeting in September.
I'd rather not have this as be never ending.
I agree.
So if
I
we could
agree.
get
Me too.
some guidance, it would be helpful.
So moving forward, I need to ask the question to the attorney, since this is already voted on twice now, does there need to be a third vote?
The commission vote stands unless the commission undoes it. So the commission's already voted on this twice. I reviewed the tapes this afternoon. The commission's voted to table it until the state attorney's office concludes. If the commission wants to change that, the commission can vote now to undo that. I mean, there's nothing stopping the commission from changing its mind.
And there's also nothing to stop me from continuing to put it on the agenda.
Okay, so we have a motion that it's already been removed now twice.
Okay.
So it is removed as of now. Are there any other motions on the floor? None. So the item is not on. Okay. Are there any other withdrawals or deletions from the agenda?
I have a comment.
Yes.
With respect to 9A, that's a public hearing. If we can just notate that in the agenda, please.
Yes.
So that's the second read. It should say public hearing.
Okay, so there are currently, you want to just notate it now, so that way when we amend the agenda, it's amended as such. Okay, so Madam Clerk, did you get that?
The public comments is on the agenda.
No, public hearing, that you need to list it on the agenda itself as a public hearing.
Yes. And it's on the list of it. There's a separate list for that.
Attorney Rodriguez, could you please direct the clerk what specifically you would like done so that we can adopt that as part of the amended agenda?
Yes, right after
the
9A.
title.
On the title, right
Yes.
after, there's a public comments.
It's, yes.
No, public hearing,
Public hearing.
not public comment. Okay?
Sorry.
All right. With that as such, with the items as discussed, with the addition of Commissioner Samaria's 12D, once again, item 11B is removed. Are there any other, and the public hearing comments changed? Did I miss anything? Okay, with that, is there a motion to amend the agenda as amended? To approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Is it second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
No.
All those opposed?
No.
Passes 3-1. I'm so sorry. I may have to retract that. Should I have recused myself for that?
As to the entire agenda?
Yeah.
No, you were supposed to.
We didn't vote on it. Yeah, okay.
You didn't vote on it at all.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. Let's make sure I didn't mess anything up. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to, there's no presentations. We're going to open to public comments. Attorney, if you could read the decorum rules. And then once again, if anybody has not already signed up for public comments, would like to speak for general public comments or the ordinance, please do so now.
All comments must be addressed to the commission as a body and not individuals. Any person making slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the commission shall be barred from further audience before the commission by the presiding officer unless permission to continue or again address the commission is granted by the majority vote of the commission members present. No clapping, applauding.
Can you give her a mic, please? It was on. Could you please hit her another mic?
It's on it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you, because it keeps going. Okay. No clapping, applauding, heckling, or in opposition to a speaker or his or her remarks shall be permitted. No signs or placards shall be allowed in the commission chambers. Please mute or turn off your cell phone or pager at the start of the meeting. Failure to do so may result in being barred from the meeting. Persons exiting the chamber shall do so quiet.
Thank you. Floor is open for public comments. Madam Clerk, if you could get the timer.
Bobby Anderson.
Bob Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. I know we have an ordinance on the attorney's increase, but what I'm talking about is not the attorney's increase, so that's why I'm talking now. Going over the bills, one of the things I did notice is a cost for review of police reports. Now, those reports happen to be some of the residents made some reports to the police department. One of them was for $67.50, one was $135, another one's for $90, another one's $67.50. That's $360. I don't understand why the attorney is involved when a resident makes a police report. We've never had this before. And I know you're going to be asking for more money for our attorney's fees. I'm asking the commission to take a look at the bills. There is so many places in there that we're being dinged and charged, which adds up to a lot of money, that I was on the commission for 20 years, never happened. I've lived here for 40 some odd years, never happened. You need to take a look on what's the monies that are being spent. Also, I know it's not on the agenda, but it was previously on it before it got removed, is a change of leadership. At the June commission meeting, during the public comments, a speaker addressed the audience instead of the commission. He mentioned some of us by name who had previously served on the commission and yelled that we were being critical of this commission, but accused us of failing to have oversight when we were in office. He was extremely agitated. At every commission meeting, the mayor talks about the decorum rule and has threatened to throw people out just for going over their 3 minutes. This speaker is a friend of hers. She said nothing while this was going on until the public and the attorney got involved. I supported her during her election and supported her for her first time in the mayor's position. I am publicly letting everybody know how sorry I am that I did this. This is just one example of her being a divider and not a uniter. It's time for her to step down as mayor and allow the village for healing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Q.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. Bob, I agree with everything you said. Vice Mayor Samaria has 3 agenda items, or I should say 2, that are important, and I hope you take the time to discuss these. When I saw Christian was recommending getting rid of the Code Compliance Board and recommending a magistrate, I wasn't surprised. Some board members and many residents have been critical of code enforcement. That's not a reason to get rid of the board. At the workshop, our attorney had quite a bit to say about the Code Compliance Board and the Sunshine Law. And I'm quoting information I took from the video. Rebecca said, quote, "I've seen violations. I've seen communications to the code officer from the code board members about code violations or believed code violations. There should be no email communications from any code board member about a matter that could come before the code board. They're basically judges. I think there needs to be better training on that." Christian said, quote, "We have several board members who are constantly emailing the code officer, and from that perspective, they shouldn't be doing that," unquote. Attorney, it's a potential violation because the code board members emailed the code officer about a potential code case. You see, it's circular, and then there's the risk when the item comes before the board. Are they recusing themselves? Are they doing a Jennings disclosure about the communication? I had to look up a few things, and I was pretty sure, even before I looked this up, that when you serve on a board, even in Biscayne Park, you don't have to give up the right to contact a code officer about a problem or address the commission about anything you want to. And actually, our attorney seems to have been wrong. I have an attorney general's ruling from the state of Florida, quote, "There is no statutory prohibition against a code enforcement board member acting in his or her private capacity, notifying the code inspector of an alleged violation. It concludes," this is by Bob Butterworth, "it concludes by saying, accordingly, it appears that a member of the Code Enforcement Board acting as a private citizen is not prohibited from alerting the code inspector to a potential violation of the local codes or ordinances. The code inspector then determines whether a code violation has occurred, and if so, initiates code enforcement proceedings against the alleged violator." And they're not violating the Sunshine Law. She also mentioned the Jennings rule disclosure, which I hadn't a clue. It states, quote, "Elected officials may not discuss zoning matters outside of a public hearing." Board members are not elected officials, and they don't deal with zoning issues, not the Code Compliance Board. When our attorney makes a statement about something, we assume it's correct. We're paying for accurate information because it affects how we conduct business, and it also affects the reputation of our residents. Our commissioners rely on this information to make decisions, and our Code Compliance Board deserves respect from this commission and the support,
conclude your
not
thought. Thank you.
dismissal.
Thank you.
Gary Q.
I agree. I want to talk about agenda item 12C, and this isn't to protect my highly paid position as a volunteer. What?
Mike, I think they're asking you to
Can you
speak
hear
to
me?
the mic. Thank you.
Anyway, I'll start over. Talk about 12C, not to protect my highly paid position as a volunteer. I would like to point out a few things that you should consider. You know, 3 members of the board have served for quite a few years, myself included, and even the 2 new appointees. I think it would have been professional, perhaps at least courteous, to let us know that you are considering going to a special magistrate, whether you do or not. This is indicative of how residents are treated. You know, instead of a heads up, what we get is the inference from the village manager that we don't know how to conduct a meeting, that we don't make decisions fairly, that we are predisposed in our decisions. Now, if all that's true, then we should have been disbanded a long time ago. Never been any comments to us, never have been any steps, corrective steps. We merely make these belated accusations. The primary reason the village manager is recommending that we go to a special magistrate is to avoid lawsuits. What lawsuits? I'm not aware of any lawsuits that have been a product of decisions made by the Code Review Board. Furthermore, if somebody contests the decision of the board, their route of appeal is through the circuit court. They bring a lawyer, doesn't mean it's a lawsuit. And if in fact, for some reason, there is a lawsuit, it's referred to the League of Cities. By the way, for the lawyer's information, we are not personally liable. We are protected with the same liability insurance that the commissioners have and staff. That is from John Hearn, who I asked, who seems to be better informed than our attorney. Some of the reasons that a code review board are good is because we're members of the community. We know the community. We know the special circumstances. We know the code. We've had instances where people have been given violations for violations that are not in our code, or for conditions that existed prior to the enactment of a code. I can see I'm running out of time. Yes, a special magistrate may be more impartial, but even if we have somebody that's predisposed on a certain matter, you have 5 people judging things, not 1. I think Barbara covered a couple of things that I would have said, and as far as just reporting things to the code compliance officer or somebody else, the only limitation is we can't act in the capacity of a board member in dealing with a resident. This thing to me is just another instance of the commission pushing residents away, and instead of dealing with a incompetent, ineffective code compliance department,
finish your thought.
sticking it
Thank
to
you.
the board.
Janie Anderson.
Janie Anderson, 11th Place, 119th.
I'm sorry, Ms. Anderson, could you lower the mic? Thank you.
I couldn't agree more with what Barbara and Gary have said. Regarding the special magistrate, I'm proud of our board. That is 5 dedicated people who have done a delicate balancing act of taking care of the property owner's rights and looking out for the village, only to be treated the way you guys have been treating us and to see the perpetual dumbing down of code. So at this point, I'd actually say, you're going to do what you want anyway, go for it. But here's some things you might want to consider. Quarterly may make the staff life easier, but it's not the best interest of the community. You go to quarterly, anybody living in the surrounding area of the various infractions, particularly if those infractions are life safety issues, have to live with it now even longer. But you know, the property owner who was cited also has a legal right to have their case heard expeditiously. As it is, we've been hearing cases that are 200 to over 500 days old. You go to quarterly, you're not going to clear that backlog, let alone hear the new cases. I mean, that property owner's got a right to have a judgment expeditiously that they know what they have to do and when they have to do it by. There are also those that aren't guilty, and they can prove it. They shouldn't have to wait minimally 3 months to clear their name. So you know what? If you're going to do it, go for it. But do it the right way. That's why we haven't done it in past years, and it's come up in past years, because we couldn't afford to do it the right way. Find the money. You know, as far as public comments go and the scapegoating that we're all the cause of the meetings that don't get finished, well, one of the things you could do is go back to the way it used to be. 41 years it worked. We line up, quick, one after another, we speak. This business now of sitting and waiting until the person moves away, waiting until the next person's called, you have added a significant amount of wasted time. I went back to January of 2018. and only using regular commission meetings, so I wasn't skewing the numbers. The average number of people who come up here, 7. We're not really blowing the meeting for you guys. Now, when it comes to the March meeting, there's a reason why that postponement was, there's 2 reasons why that was rather crucial. One, it cost us money. Cost us money for re-advertising in the ordinance. It cost us money because at the 19th, you guys started hearing the You started hearing the variance, which you couldn't do. And until you figure that out, we're probably a good 45 minutes of attorney's fees. Also, in the mere fact that we weren't told the truth. It's not hard, you guys. Just like you did at the special meeting when 2 of you had attendance issues, you worked it out publicly. That's all you had to do for the March meeting. It didn't have to be this big secret that got blown out of proportion because it ended up costing us money.
Thank you.
Dan
Madam Clerk?
Schneider.
Dan Schneider, 11705 Northeast 11th Place. As all of the commissioners, village manager, village attorney, and many residents are aware, my husband and I have repeatedly been the targets of harassment by village code officer Christina Caserta. Because of this pattern of harassment, we have rightfully requested her termination. The most recent incident required us to appear in person before the Village Code Compliance Board on July 18th. 2 weeks earlier, we were given a citation for installing a fence without a permit, which is patently false. Sadly, this isn't the first or second time we have been improperly targeted by Christina. Each time, I have had to remind her and her boss, Village Manager Christian Manners, that we are the good guys here. We bought a neglected property 3.5 years ago on Northeast 11th Place and have spent countless hours in sweat equity and nearly $250,000 making our house and surrounding garden one of the best looking and most code compliant properties on the east side of Biscayne Park. It also must be stated that we have gotten all permits prior to every project and have exceeded the requirements of what the village has asked for in terms of supporting documentation for these permitted projects every single time. That is the reason we have received every permit without delay, and we're told by the P&Z board that we provided the best and most detailed presentation the board has ever experienced. As a former member of the Village Planning and Zoning Board, I wish there were more residents as responsible, considerate, and proactive as we have been during the renovation of our home. This baloney about installing a fence without a permit is just the latest example of an effort to intimidate and silence us from pointing out to Christian and the village commissioners that Christina is failing in her responsibility to enforce the code evenly and without prejudice across the village. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that there has been no response from the village manager or commissioners regarding Christina's unacceptable behavior at the July 18th code compliance meeting that she canceled after being appropriately questioned by board members for her false allegations. Christina admitted that she knew we had a permit when we installed our fence over 3.5 years ago, but she kept insisting that she had reason to cite us for something. After making several bizarre accusations, none of which the board could make any sense of, she abruptly threatened to quit her job, stood up, and told us all to leave the log cabin so she could lock the doors. The question is not if we will be targeted again by Christina, but rather when. Please be advised that Mac and I will be attending the August Code Compliance meeting and intend to have a full and reasonable discussion with the board and code officer until our questions and concerns are addressed, including the origin of her false allegation. If that meeting is canceled, we will attend the September meeting, and if necessarily, the meeting after that, until we are satisfied that this entire episode has been thoroughly investigated and dealt with to our satisfaction. So I have to ask, where's the accountability? During the last election, Betsy Wise had a sign on the front of her house stating her support for fair code enforcement. So why hasn't she or any other village leader reached out to us or offered an apology for this clear abuse of Christina's authority? And why has there been no corrective action taken? I'll tell you why. Because this is part of a larger campaign of intimidation that has characterized the current administration's actions since my husband and I, and many other residents, began speaking out against the repeated charter violations of this commission. I take no pleasure in stating the following. Christian Manners and Christina Caserta should have their employment with the village terminated, and Tracy Trutman should be removed from the position of mayor.
Thank you.
Mac Kennedy.
MacDonald, I didn't start. You want to back the clock up? I hadn't introduced myself yet. I'll just add 10 more seconds on at the end if that's good with you, Tracy.
Absolutely.
MacDonald Kennedy, 1-1. You're going to start it again?
Just give a second. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Ready, set, go. MacDonald Kennedy, 11705 Northeast 11th Place. The most important topic of the evening is that Dan and I have been targeted and attacked by the code department of this village, and we're not tolerating it. I let Dan speak for us tonight, and he did a fine job. I invite all of you to come to the August 12th meeting. We have requested to be put back on the agenda. No one has replied to us. I emailed that to Roseanne, Christian, and Christina, and no one replied and asked and confirmed that we're on the agenda, but we're coming. So Gary, please put us on the agenda when we show up. And I invite everyone here to come hear our case as well. A couple of random things. Tonight you're voting on some board members, and one of them is for a quasi-judicial board. Those boards are different than the other boards. They actually have power. With all due respect to the people who sit on parks and parkways and things like that, they're fabulous boards, but they don't have power like P&Z and code compliance do. They have power over residents, our quality of life and our finances, and it should be taken very seriously who you put on those boards. Now, I prepared a full presentation here tonight about one of the applicants, and in the interest of preserving my marriage, I have opted not to read that tonight. But I hope all 5 of you, well, 4 that showed up tonight, I hope the 4 of you who are here took this very seriously and did your due diligence. You have the ability to pull public records at no charge. I get charged for them. You don't. You have the ability to pull that information. You can pull emails from residents to the village and other people. You can pull police reports and see what kind of police reports have been filed by people in this village. You can see the results of those cases. You can Google the Miami-Dade court system, and you can find other information about things that residents have been involved in that might give you pause about putting them on any board in this village, let alone a quasi-judicial board that actually has power. If you haven't done that before you came here tonight, I would strongly urge you to postpone the votes for the boards tonight. Go home and do your homework. Ask Roseanne to provide this information. Go to the police department and do your own investigation. Make sure you know who you're putting on boards and what kind of behavior they're capable of. You might be really surprised what you find out. The March 5th meeting, we'll eventually find out. You guys really, in the interest of moving meetings along and actually accomplishing something for this village, you might actually just have that conversation, put it to bed. Jenny brought the topic up. She's the one who kind of busted it wide open. So when you said that, you were told the meeting was canceled, so you might just want to put that thing to bed already. I'd kind of like to know what you're all hiding. Tracy, it seems like you're hiding something in particular. I'd like to know what that is. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Ross?
I have several comments on some of the items on the agenda. Rox Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. With regard to the code and eliminating the code board in favor of a magistrate, I don't know whether it's a good idea or not, but it does merit some discussion, and you should take into account the value of the board that has served for so many years on a volunteer basis. But following up on some of the comments that were made earlier, no resident, no board member, or the board can initiate a code case. The code case can only be initiated by the code officer. And I agree with some of the comments that were made that you don't give up your rights as a citizen when you sit on a board. You don't even give up your rights as a commissioner, except you can't speak to each other out of a public meeting on a public item. The manager's memo on converting it to a magistrate talks about piggybacking on a neighborhood, on a neighboring city's contract. Piggybacking implies an RFP. It implies a competitive bidding process. And as far as I could tell on the information that's attached here, North Miami did not go through a competitive bidding process for that contract. So piggybacking gives an illusion that there was competitive bidding, which wasn't. The implementation and the cost of drafting and approving an ordinance is not referenced when they talk about the impact of resources, because you can't just one day open up and sign a contract with a magistrate without changing your code. And that's going to require attorney's fees and codifying that magistrate process. Our attorney has been tasked with numerous things already that never went before the commission for a vote to pursue. So be very careful, because our attorney's fees are far exceeding anything we've seen in the past. Do you want to assign another task to your attorney to do this conversion without knowing really where you're going with it? You also have on the agenda an item about charter review boards. There, of course, is a process in place. It's codified at Section 2-35 Charter Review Advisory Board. I note that there was one of the attachments was that ordinance, but you didn't really talk about how you're going to bring that board out of its sunset and impanel it. You should, and I intend to make this a public records request, take a look at the chair's report that was delivered at the April 7, 2015 commission meeting. It was a brief report. I watched the video, but the report itself has more details of what the discussion was. And the last item is the risk and safety management. I spoke to you last month about this. These are items that your manager really should be taking care of already with the staff at FMIT. I see no reason why you have to specially task your manager to do something that's already his duty to do.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next.
Chuck Ross.
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. During the workshop to review the meeting rules and procedures, there was a discussion to bifurcate public comment by restricting discussion about agenda items to the start of the meeting and general topics at the end. This is clearly intended to shut down the opportunity to voice opinions about concerns, since most meetings do not get completed on time. Therefore, we will likely not get a chance to speak about those things. You may not be happy if you make this change when the shoe is on the other foot. Commissioners Johnson, Sardella, Tudor, and Wise need to take some responsibility for not investigating the behavior of the mayor. Commissioner Samari has tried to bring an item as a discussion, but gets no support from the rest of you. There have been several instances that have been brought to your attention, including but not limited to the, as mentioned, the suspicious cancellation of the March 5th meeting, the obstruction of the public records process that included charging unauthorized fees, the legislative request made behind the scenes submitted to the legislature in Tallahassee, instructions to the attorney to prepare an ordinance regarding the boards not brought before the commission, and the latest incident, an amicus brief submitted to the Supreme Court brought by Tracy, represented by Rebecca, that appears as her attorney. I believe the mayor has overstepped her authority. I believe that she is partially, or if not completely, responsible for some of the actions I enumerated earlier, and you are the ones that need to hold her accountable for her actions. You swore an oath to uphold the charter, and that includes, if necessary, holding your fellow colleagues' feet to the fire. You need to move forward on Dan's items 11A and 11B. On another matter, I've been attempting to get an answer out of the manager for well over a month as to the status of the debris the debris removal monitoring company. I've sent him several emails. I have not gotten any answers. The manager told me at the May 11th meeting they received an RFPs, and it would be on the June meeting agenda. So, was that not true? What's the status of this? We're in the middle of hurricane season. Thank you, that's all for now.
Thank you. Next.
Fred Jonas.
Fred Jonas, 918 119th Street. I want to talk about 12C, and I have to say I really had sort of mixed feelings about this. This is the Code Compliance Board and the possibility of replacing it with a magistrate. And I think in a way, looking at it superficially, there's something to be said for doing that, and I would look at the Planning and Zoning Board in the same way. one approach to it is to consider making those kinds of boards which are legally invested in ways that the other boards are not, more professional. The way Gary Kuehl put it tonight, and he's a member of the Code Compliance Board, is that it could seem less partial or more impartial if the people who were serving that function were not village residents. And I think there's something to be said for that too, and that is for both boards. I'll remind you, since a number of you really have no idea what goes on in the village and never have, but in the past we had a code compliance officer who was a village resident, and that generated a number of kinds of concerns from people who thought, rightly or wrongly, that the code compliance officer was gentle with her friends and harsh with people she didn't like. And whether or not that's true, just to paraphrase, even the appearance of favoritism is not a good thing. And we certainly wouldn't want to see that in places like the Code Compliance Board or Planning and Zoning. So in that sense, I think it's an interesting conversation to have. The problem for me is that in introducing this item, and I looked at the backup, it appears that you've already chosen a likely candidate, someone who was not properly vetted. You're talking about numbers that apply to a municipality that is much better endowed than we are. And in order to accommodate those numbers, you want to delay people having their business done by having meetings not monthly but quarterly. And somebody else brought this up too. That's really grossly inappropriate for this village. The other thing is that there becomes the possibility, I say that because of this particular commission, which, in case you didn't hear other people say it, is a very unusual commission. We have never had anything like this before, but it introduces the possibility that the commission is really going further in its crusade to shut out village residents who are not commissioners. That's been going on, and this seems like just another example of it. Tracy, please listen to your neighbors instead of listening to that little bell. The neighbors are more important than the bell. So I'm really not convinced that in this case, at this time, this suggestion is a very good one. And really, in many respects, it's because of this commission. This is a faulty commission. You've heard a lot of people say that for a really long time, and you ought to listen.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Virginia O'Halpern.
Virginia O'Halpern, 675 Northeast 113th Street. I agree with everything that's been said before, but I noticed something on the agenda. And this is under the village attorney, which I know some of the costs that are really done. Why are we a friend of the court on a Supreme Court case? And are we paying the attorney to do a brief and appear as a friend of the court representing Biscayne Park? I don't think Biscayne Park has a problem with LGBTQ matters. I think we're a very nice town. And I don't think we should be paying as a friend of the court. We're not paying. The lawyer is doing this for free.
I'll address it when you finish. Good. I don't want to take up your time. Thank you.
I mean, and also, one other thing on cost. When the Attorney General or somebody from their or her office calls our lawyer, are we paying also for that phone call? That's just another thing. I don't know that we should be accepting those kinds of phone calls because we pay both ways on phone calls. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
I have a comment, public comment in a paper from a resident that is not here, and I want the commission to guide me gotta read or?
We have never.
You can read in just so it's in the sunshine. Just please list the resident's name and their address for your minutes. Please read the resident's name and address so it's clear for the minutes, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's for.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Could you? Excuse me. Excuse me. Thank you.
I was never consulted on that. I don't know when that was, and I don't know what this item is, but.
All right.
There's.
Excuse. If you'll let me take care of this, please, sir. Please. Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, you had your 3 minutes. Thank you.
My legal opinion, since I'm the one on the dais right now, is that in the interest of every resident being heard, which the commission should strive to do, that I'm assuming this person's a resident of the village. I don't know what this is.
Yes, it's a resident, Rosemary Wise, 1010 Northeast 116th Street.
I mean, it's up to the commission to entertain it. I see nothing wrong with it, but I don't have a vote.
So will you start reading?
I'm not going to ask again, please, sir. We have historically not read them in. The resident is correct who is out speaking. We have not historically read them in, so I'll let the other commissioners weigh in on this.
I don't have a vote. That's my legal opinion. I don't see anything wrong with it.
I think part of it was we already summarized some of it that had to do with the microphones. I know she's not feeling well, and she's a person who comes all the time. It's Rosemary Wise. I'll let Commissioner Tudor. Is it okay? This is going to be our decision.
Yeah, I'm more of the mindset, to have everything on the record. If there's a letter that's come in from a resident, I'm inclined to have that read into the record. That's just the way I would like to have seen it done.
Is that yes on you as well?
Yes. I think that starting from this moment forward, and I agree with Commissioner Tudor, that if a resident takes time to send an email, it should be read into the record. Again, Mr. Gunning, that was the past, and hopefully we're going to change that starting tonight, okay? So
I'm going to allow, I'll do the last one.
I don't have an issue. I don't foresee that there's going to be like a laundry list or a stack of things to read into the record, and I agree with my fellow commissioners that have spoken that everyone should be heard, and if they don't have an opportunity to be here, then I don't see an issue with their statements being read in.
I have no problem, but I do know historically we haven't done that, so I do think that's something we maybe would address during one of our workshops as well. Okay? Go ahead and read it into the record.
Okay. Rosemary Wise, 1010 Northeast 116th Street. I'm appalled by the flagrant disregard of our Biscayne Park Charter by members of this commission who upon their election took an oath and swore to uphold that charter. Yet month after month after month, our charter and rules of procedure are violated with indifference. These violations have been pointed out many times during commission meetings, and nothing is done to put an end to it, but those who sit on the commission. Your silence condones the violations which go on and on and on. This blatant and shameless disregard of the rules and procedures has got to stop. Our legal counsel is also complicit in violations to the detriment of the village financially, as well as time wasted to correct their mistakes. They have provided incorrect advice on important issues, prepared ordinance without the full commission approval in direct violation of our charter and procedure rules. Obviously, their knowledge of our charter and procedure rules is limited or non-existent. Have they even read the charter and procedure rules? I would at least expect a refund to the village for all the billed hours spent on incorrect and improper advice given to the commission. Maybe it's time to seriously consider hiring a different law firm that has attorneys with more experience than this firm in municipal government.
Are there any other further public comments? People have not spoken and would like to speak?
No other persons.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, public comments closed. There's no information intakes. We have a consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the balance of approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're going to go to item 8C.
Mayor, do you want me to run over to Village Hall and collect the June bill before we start this?
Actually, no. I'd like to go ahead and just let's go through C and D, and then we'll take a pause. Which is the printer and copy lease for police.
Those were on the consent.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was on consent.
It's on their consent.
All right. So yes, we'll take a pause. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. It's my computer will turn on.
8:17.
8:17. Thank you. At 8:17. Okay. We're going to go ahead and reconvene. Everybody. All right. We're going to move to ordinance 9A. It's a public hearing. I'm going to ask the village attorney to go ahead and read that ordinance. 2019-02, budget amendments.
Ordinance 2019-02, budget amendment, second reading. An ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending fiscal year 2018-2019 budget ordinance 2018-06, amending and increasing the professional services budget, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so anybody who wishes to speak hopefully will have signed in already. So we're going to open the public comments specific to this ordinance only, 2019-02. Madam Clerk.
Barbara Q.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. I'm against this ordinance. I don't think it should have been done now, and I think at the rate we're going to run out of money. There's been out-of-control spending with the attorney. The mayor has had over 18 hours a month. The attorney's doing ordinances without direction from the commission in the form of a resolution. And when I looked at Rebecca's attorney's report, who authorized her to, because I never heard about us doing this amicus brief, and it's under Tracy Trupman's name. Did this ever come before the commission? Even if it's free, somebody said, well, maybe she did it for free. Why is this going through and there's got to be some money involved. In her report, she also had information about the tree removal permits with copies of our charter. Except we follow Miami-Dade County's tree removal process. It's in our code. And when they change something, the nice thing is we don't have to do anything. It saves us money because we don't have to update our code. It's automatically done. If somebody wants to remove a tree, they look at Miami-Dade County. So again, I don't know, why are we being billed for that? We've been given incorrect information from the attorneys from variance hearings about the sunshine rules on our code boards. We've had to work with FEMA after hurricanes in the past because they denied claims. I don't ever remember having to spend $15,000 to have an attorney sort out our paperwork. Why didn't the manager, the Public Works, Finance, the clerk, work together to handle the denial? Why did the attorney have to step in? Mr. Herron, our last attorney, who offered to continue as our attorney, he said he would cover all of the legal costs for the rest of the year for the original agreed-upon contract for $75,000. Why did we think we were getting something better and we're already going to be spending close to $50,000 more? It's time, I think, to look for new representation. And at this rate, if this commission doesn't start really answering some questions that are brought up by the residents, you're going to run us out of business, and you're going to be up for fiscal irresponsibility.
Janie Anderson.
Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. One of the first thing I noticed in reading the backup, if I heard incorrectly last month, quickly correct me, of course, but I heard that there would be 20,000 coming over from digitizing of records in addition to the 15. If that's the case, that's not made clear. It appears like there's only an additional 15. Now, is the 20,000 staying with digitizing records? I'd be thrilled. Great for staff, great for those making public records requests, but if that 20 is coming over, that was not detailed. You know, in going back, in 41 years, I've seen 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 village attorneys. I've never seen billing for this sort of numbers of intricate little things we're getting billed for. Attorneys doing things in advance of commission discussion. We had, when we were paid for Wilma in 2005, it was probably a year to 2 years later when they came back and said, your documentation wasn't appropriate. There are issues here. We had a lengthy appeal process. Staff took care of it. The manager took care of it. It got done. There was minimal input from the person who was our attorney at the time. There was certainly not an additional $15,000 bill. And the way we keep going with just what I'm seeing on her report tonight, come on, you guys, you got to get a rein on this.
Rob Soares.
Rox Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. Last month, I asked the commission if they had reviewed the attorney's fees, if they have reviewed the bills, and I'm going to ask you again, has anyone, show of hands, anyone reviewed the attorney's fees invoices? I sent them to some of you. I hope that you got them from your manager if I didn't send them to you directly, because no one responded to acknowledge that I sent them. Last 2 invoices. The June invoice, not including FEMA charges. Those are billed out separately. The June invoice for May time was $18,734. The July invoice for June time was $13,449, not including FEMA. I hope that you're paying close attention to these items, because they are going to, what you're agreeing to set aside or increase the budget for tonight is not going to cover these invoices if you don't rein in and redirect your attorney's efforts to do some more material and substantive things for the village rather than represent the mayor. And if you did review the records, there's one time entry that really jumped out on me on June 3rd, in-person meeting with the village mayor regarding various pending village legal matters in preparation for upcoming village meetings. 3.1 hours. 3.1 hours for one meeting with the mayor. You know what? The mayor doesn't run the village. Your village manager is supposed to run the village. And when your attorney is communicating only with the mayor cannot relay that information to you, other commissioners, in order to inform you if it's valuable to make a decision. So I'm not quite sure why we have to pay the attorney over 3 hours to meet with the mayor if she is elected commissioner just like the rest of you. Along that line, before this new crew of attorneys came to represent the village, rarely is there a time entry. I found no time entry with the most recent attorney for communications or meetings with the mayor alone. On occasion, they may meet with the manager and the mayor to go through things, but since this crew of attorneys came in, starting in February, first entries were over an hour of talking to the mayor about public records requests. Not sure why that was necessary, but you paid for it. So since February, the mayor alone has had meetings or communications, telephone calls, conference calls with your village attorneys for a total of 18.5 hours. By comparison, your city manager has met with the mayor and the attorneys for a total of 12.4 hours. If you refuse to acknowledge this, if you refuse to take some action here, you are throwing our money away, allowing this firm to represent the mayor on things that are unknown.
Chuck Ross.
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. Some of the things I was going to say have been said already, so I'm not going to repeat them. I agree with everything that I've heard so far. I would say that I've said this at a past meeting, is I have a grave concern that this is an inexperienced attorney when it comes to local government. There are things that she has apparently taken or that she has done. For example, the preparation of that ordinance I spoke about earlier, that maybe a more experienced attorney would have said, wait, Mayor, or whoever told her to do it, this needs to come before the commission first. So, and that's just one minor example of my concerns. There's also been several items that she has given you advice on that appear not to be correct. There was, for example, the issue about the budget hearing, not knowing when a budget hearing, which is kind of basic stuff about when what time frame they normally occur, which is the first part of September. She should have known this without having to even look at anything. It just tells me that this is not a seasoned local government attorney, and you need to rethink who we're doing business with up there. And they're costing us, the firm in total, a hell of a lot of money, 2 to 3 times what we used to pay a month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Q.
When Barbara and I were preparing, what?
Name, address, please.
You know my name by now? Jeez. Gary Keel, 777 Northeast 111th Street. When Barbara and I were preparing to come to the meeting tonight, we downloaded chapter 162, and we read it. So we'd come here, we know what we're talking about. Even the little nuances about how the village is recommended that the village provide counsel to the Code Review Board. And I bring that up because if our attorney is advising us on everything under the sun, including stuff she shouldn't be doing, why isn't she giving you that kind of advice? If there were concerns about our legal capabilities, why don't we have counsel? The attorney said that the Code Review Board has the power to impose liens. Wrong. We do not. That's done by the village. We assess fines, and if those fines are not paid, that's up to the village. That's a pretty serious misstatement. You were advised that you could appoint all the board members at one time. Wrong. Chapter 162 dictates that you have staggered terms, so you have continuity. At the rate we're going, you're going to be over $180,000 for a year at the rate you're spending money on what was initially, I believe, a $75,000 budget for wrong information. You're making decision on somebody who clearly doesn't have the background in the municipal government and is telling you stuff without any research, any thought, and she's wrong.
Madam Clerk.
Linda Dillon.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. I wasn't going to say anything, except I want to lend my support to what has already been said by all the other residents. I think our attorneys' fees are outrageous, and I think they're unwarranted. And in the way we're going to cost the village more than double what we've ever paid for before. And some of the information that has been provided has been 100% incorrect.
Thank you. Anybody else?
MacDonald Kennedy, 11705 Northeast 11th Place. You know the expression, you get what you pay for?
Could you hold on 1 second so we can make sure the clock is set for you correctly?
Not
My
even gonna use it
apologies.
all. Oh, God, now it
Okay,
just...
go ahead. Thank you.
Now it just died. MacDonald Kennedy, 11705 Northeast 11th Place. You know the expression, you get what you paid for? Well, there's an exception to every rule, and I'd say that would be Gray Robinson in this case. Because we are paying outrageous amounts of money. They're scalping you. And look at the quality of product that you're getting for what you're paying. You're getting an inferior product at a premium price. Those two things do not equate. You had the opportunity to have a capped agreement with another attorney. You had the opportunity for a not to exceed amount with another person who was in here already doing the job and who offered to take over that contract. You would have been capped on the amount of money that you would be spending. You passed on that, and that means you have a higher level of scrutiny required to look at the fees in advance, not the bills after the fact. So the fact that you're all looking at bills now and saying, oh my God, look how much we spent. No, if you're going to have a capped agreement, then let her have at it. You're getting whatever you need from her. But if you're going to pay and pay and pay and pay and there's no cap, that means you're required to mind it in advance, not after the fact. You don't wait till bills roll in and go, oh my God, we need more money. And we need more money. And apparently, the case that Rox laid out, where's Rox? Did she leave? You're not going to have enough money. You're not going to have close to enough money before this is all said and done. It's not the village's attorney's responsibility. It's not her job to apologize for the village. You're on the phone with somebody from the Attorney General's office apologizing for us. Rebecca, it's not your job to apologize for the village. It's your job to advise them on how to do their jobs better. That's it. You don't speak for us. You don't apologize for us. And you certainly don't apologize for one of the commissioners. Dan can say and do whatever the hell he wants. He got duly elected to that position, and he's doing his thing his way. It's not your job to apologize for him or this village. And it's not your responsibility to tell him how to act. For the amount of money that we are paying, I would think that we'd be getting contemporaneous notes for all the phone calls and meetings. I'd like to really see what's going on in these meetings. We don't know. For that amount of money, notes are being taken. These meetings are not happening without people taking notes. Contemporaneous notes from the attorney and the village officials should be part of this deal, so everything's out in the open. I had one other thing I wanted to say. I had a zinger for the end and I forget what it was. Bob Anderson, I forgive you. I'm not sure I can forgive you for Harvey, but I forgive you for sure.
That's it. Okay, public comments hearing is closed. Village manager.
As we went through in last commission meeting, we know that the fees for the attorneys have added up. We are looking at that. During the last meeting, we determined that we needed about $35,000 more. $20,000 could be moved through professional services. This ordinance is to move $15,000 into that budget line so that we can go ahead and continue the current level of service that we're getting.
Thank you. Open it for village commissioners' questions.
I don't want to take everybody's time. I like to go last.
See,
Could you all speak in the microphone?
I'll turn it on.
Everybody, all of you.
are there any questions from the commission? Please me, please. We heard you. Go that. Okay, we'll start this end.
I think at the last meeting, I was the one that wanted to lower the amount that we were increasing because I do have a concern about the billing going over. There are a lot of entries here of items that it seems as if there's things that didn't come in front of the commission and they're being done, and I don't know when. I can agree with the residents that I don't know when it's going to end. And I know this is the second reading, but I feel like the rest of us, all of the commissioners sitting here, need to be mindful of this because when we hired Gray Robinson, it was none of our intention that we would have bills that are ballooning. And that's what's happening here. So I think we would have to have a real serious discussion as to why they're ballooning. I see in the third paragraph of the backup that, due to certain previously unanticipated legal issues. But as I go through the billing, not everything is an unanticipated issue. And there's a lot of billing here. So I think we need to just have a frank discussion as to where we're going with this. Because we can add the money now, and then we can come back 2 months from now, and there's some other unanticipated legal issue, and we're going to have to pull more money. So I have an issue of how high the billing is going. I know that just because we're moving money over doesn't mean that it's going to get billed, but I think we have to have that discussion so that we can anticipate what's going to happen rather than finding out after the fact.
Commissioner Vice Mayor?
Oh.
Or, I'm sorry, Commissioner
Yeah, he wants
Tudor.
Vice Mayor wants to go last. To kind of echo one of the things that Commissioner Johnson Sardella was saying, I know at the first hearing, there was a discussion, and I think we were in agreement, I believe the majority of commission was, that we didn't want to have the dollar amount so high. So, I could see increasing it, the amount for the FEMA, so that's why I was comfortable with the 15 going from 75 to 90. I think there is going to need to be a serious conversation about the billing and understanding, because I think part of the confusion, or part of what's creating, I think, the increase as well to the legal fees is something that I think traditionally, and I think it's even in the engagement letter about routine phone calls are not billed. And so having that discussion about, well, what is considered a routine phone call, because what I consider a routine phone call may be completely different. And that may be what one of the issues is. Because I know for one period of time, I think it was for a 3 or 4 month period, I think there was, charges in excess of I think around $5,800 that were tied just mainly to telephone calls and having discussions. So, yeah, I think there is a need to actually go through there and also have a discussion to educate the commission as well to what we can and cannot and should not be doing with the attorney. Because one thing that that I've always kind of held very fast to, and I know it's probably driven a couple of residents crazy, because I've actually had to say this in an email to them, that I can't direct employees to take any particular action. So, looking at some of the fees, and since we don't have, a definitive understanding of it, I just want to make sure that there is no commissioners and not, any of the 5 of us who sit up here. I want to make sure we're all clear that we are not directing the attorney to do any type of work that could cause a financial burden, not just on the, because the extra fees that we're paying to the attorney not only impact the residents who are sitting in the gallery, it impacts me and my household as well. We're taxpayers. And so, we all have a stake in this. So I don't think, just to make it very aware, I'm not open to the ideas of opening up the bank and throwing cash out, because as a property owner, it's my cash. So I think we need to really have that conversation about it. But I do understand that with the FEMA charges, we could have used H2O partners, which would have cost us significantly more.
It would have been around $50,000 with H2O, opposed to 15 with.
So I'm comfortable with the, at this point with the 15 to take it from 75 to 90, which is kind of the discussion in here. But I'm not comfortable, and I would not in the future vote for any increases over that 90,000. So whatever needs to be done, whatever discussions need to be had, we need to have it so that we can all make sure that we're all on the same page, so that we can get the spending down to a reasonable amount. Because the highest I've seen previously was with a prior attorney was a little over 10,000 for a month, and at the time I thought that was a little high. Definitely some of these are are definitely higher than what I would like to see. So I definitely think it's a conversation we're going to have. And I think it's something that, seeing these numbers, this needs to be an item. Either we need to have a special commission meeting, we need to have a workshop, something. We need to be sitting down sooner than later, not waiting till next month or the month after that, but getting this ironed out quickly.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, that was going to be at the end about it. Adding agenda items, that was going to be my September agenda item, that we need to have a discussion on that. So I'm glad to see that two commissioners agreed to that. Okay, so City Manager, I just want to ask, is the letter that Gray Robinson requesting these fees, shouldn't that have been in the backup here? Shouldn't have been, if the law firm is requesting that they need more money, shouldn't it have been in the backup?
And they didn't request more money. What we did was we looked at the bills as they were coming in. We looked at where we had spent so far this year.
Okay.
And that was why we proactively went ahead with this ordinance. They were at, I want to say, around 51,000 at the time. And we could see that it was going to go over the 75. And so that was why we started this ordinance last time.
Okay, thank you. I went through this bill and I went through all the bills. And so this is some of my concerns that I have. That's why I was trying to move this item to the next agenda, to give everybody a chance to look at it and to see what I have seen. This attorney has demonstrated that she has no experience in local government, as we were led to believe that she was. Here are some examples. She admitted she reviews a letter sent to residents in connection with the waste pro fee that was not correct format as guidance from DOR. 2, she gave us the wrong ADA compliance and emotional support animals and may have swayed a vote by this commission based on this incorrect information. 3, it appears to be acting on behalf of the mayor and have provided the mayor defense to object to my item, change in leadership. This is not the mayor's attorney, she's the village and commissioner's attorney. 4, she prepared an ordinance, I believe, directed by the mayor without the direction of the full commission. We already established that. This is a violation of Biscayne policy to bring an ordinance or resolution. She doesn't understand the Florida statute exists that governs the installation of solar energy equipment. That was in reference to Jonas's item. Did not understand the proper procedure to set budgets. Most recently, signed as an attorney for the mayor in connection with the Amherst brief sent to the Supreme Court, Florida Supreme. Question, was that the Florida Supreme Court? Right? It was the Florida Supreme Court, right? United States. Okay, United States Supreme Court, good. Okay, the legal fees are 2 to 3 times the amount of former attorney Horham, who worked for this law firm. On these dates, specific 3/19 conducted a public hearing for a variance that was advertised to take place on 3/5. Because of this hearing, had to be moved, suspended, and rescheduled for 5/7. 2 attorneys billed us for this participation. She did not walk the commission through the proper Jennings disclosure for public hearings on variances 3/19, 5/7, with at least 2 attorneys that billed us. They finally corrected on June 4th. Participation 5/7 executive session held public notice of meeting with 3 attorneys billing and no correct date. Not adequately prepared to walk commissioner through the process and vote on the Grubbs contract at the 6/4 meeting, and then had to correct it at the 7/9. There is a lot more that is more upsetting in this billing that have submitted to the village. The June billing was the worst. I don't know if any of these commissioners looked at this statements that we got from the attorney for their billings. If they did, I find it hard to believe that they can accept this. John Herron, here's an example, and this one I'm not going to take credit for. This one came from a resident who happens to be knowing about how legal billing goes. John Herring, who used to be the attorney for the village, belonged to the same law firm. 7 regular and special commission meetings averaged 3.7 hours for prep and attendance. Came out to approximately $842 a meeting, which means came out to $5,894. 318 and 319 meeting, 3 attorneys booked 14.5 hours prep and attendance, billing us $3,252. April 1st meeting, prep and attendance by 3 attorneys billed us 10.5 hours, which came out to $2,434. Let's see, get my numbers here. $2,434. Total was $5,687 approximately. Conference call on 4 different days came out to $2,925. Total for all the conference calls and the 318 and 319, just those alone, came out to $8,612. If we was to base it upon the 7 meetings just on John Herron, will come out to over $13,000, $13,717 in the same period. That's a difference of $9,106, or 2.5 times the amount. Do you want me to go over each of the billing that I found a problem with, or do you want? How do you want to handle it, Madam Mayor? Because I have a lot of the June billing that I like to go over.
Did you go over this with the attorney or with the manager?
No, I did not. I don't have to. Why do I have to?
I didn't say you had to. I just
okay.
asked.
No, I did not.
That's all I asked. Did not say what you have to and haven't to. We do have a long agenda.
Okay.
And so if you would like, my question is that if you have serious concerns regarding the billing, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just asking, do you want? How many more minutes are you looking to?
Well, since I got 2 commissioners that basically said, what I like to do is to let them know ahead of time that I would like to make this agenda item for the next meeting, and I think that we can go more depth of this. Because I want to be fair to the attorneys and have them the chance to look at the bill and then come.
I'm ready now. I would love the opportunity to have the floor and discuss it now.
Okay, then I have to go through all my billing.
Can you allow her to rebut? I mean, with all due respect, we don't have this. This is a village business meeting.
I understand.
So, and I understand that you have serious concerns, and I do agree that this is a separate item and it's not necessarily 9A. So, if there's no objection with my fellow commissioners, I'd like to allow the attorney to have some rebuttal time here, and then I'd like to go ahead and make my comments. Please go ahead.
I just want to respond to some things that were said. I took notes. It's a page. Okay. So, with respect to my qualifications, just so the record's clear, the president of the Florida Bar has appointed me to the Committee of Government Law and Public Policy Advocacy. That's an appointed position with the Florida Bar for the entire state. I was recently appointed as the co-chair for the Government Law section of the Broward County Bar Association. So I've represented the city of Coral Gables, the village of Palmetto Bay, and we represent cities around the whole state, and I occasionally help with those as well. I also worked on things for City of Marathon, and I have represented the Seminole Tribe of Florida. So it's inaccurate to say that I don't have experience, but that's one item. Then with respect to the June bill, just a general statement, because I don't know if people know how to read legal bills. June was high. There was a lot going on in June, but if you look at a lot of my time, I'm RR for Rebecca Rodriguez. Next to a lot of my time, there are zeros. It's because I comped the village for that. There are a lot of zeros throughout the bill. Yes, because I comped the village for a lot of these. Because I agree, June was very high. And on that note, I would like to have some sort of workshop or general discussion about maybe a standing call once a week, or a designated office day a few days a month to keep the village's legal work in check, and those are the designated days that I work on Village Matters so that it is corralled. We do this with a lot of government clients. That might help this situation. I will say that June was excessively high. That's why I comped a lot of my own time. You'll see I didn't write off other attorneys' time on other matters. I wrote off my time for the benefit of the village. And the bills that were just generated on August 5th, yesterday, last month's bills were $75.15. I mean, the June bill, it's a very high bill, but let's talk about what was going on in June. There were quasi-judicial proceedings. There was an ethics investigation. Commissioners were contacted. The manager was contacted. There was a threat of a construction lawsuit. The manager and I were dealing with an attorney on that, and she was calling like every day. We were dealing with the workers' compensation matter. We were in union contract negotiations at the time. There are HR issues that we routinely provide guidance on to the village manager who is overstaffed. And we were in the middle of a very large audit because apparently the village was behind on audits or something like that with JLAC. So we were communicating with JLAC. There were some comments made about things that were done correctly or incorrectly. I don't helicopter the staff. I work on items that are assigned to me. Otherwise, the bills would get out of control. I think maybe an office day or standing calls every week could help deal with that. The tree removal, I was going to bring that up in attorney comments. That's just a new statute in Florida that I'm bringing to the Commission's attention. It's effective July 1st. I wanted the Commission to be aware of it. We are preempted. That's the state law now. That's the law of the land. With respect to the amicus brief, I did not draft that. That I was going to bring this up in attorney updates as well. I don't even think I billed for it, honestly. I can confirm at the next meeting because this is just coming up now, but the mayor was contacted as an LGBTQ mayor to co-sign an amicus brief that was already prepared. I believe she, along with the mayor of Wilton Manors and the mayor of Miami Beach, who I believe are all LGBTQ mayors in South Florida, signed it in their capacity as an LGBTQ mayor voicing support, which, as has come out in this meeting on other matters, you don't lose your right of free speech just because you sit on the commission. The commission did not sign that. It wasn't done in the capacity of the entire commission. That was an LGBTQ mayor that was approached and asked if she would support this brief, and she said yes. That was it. Our contract is hourly. It's $2.25 an hour per attorney. There was a comment made that we surpassed our contract where we bill on an hourly basis. And I would really like the commission to consider some sort of policy with the attorney about office days or standing calls. It would help me manage your workload, and I think it would help keep the bills in check as well. But again, June is extremely unique for the issues I've just stated, and last month's bill that just was generated yesterday was $75.15.
Thank you. We are voting on 9A. If there's an additional item, and I concur with a lot of what was said here regarding trying to rein in the bills. I don't disagree with any of that. I think it is challenging with the amount of work that was backlogged and some of the issues that came up. I do want to make one comment regarding, and you already spoke about the amicus brief, so I'm not going to waste any more time on it. That was my decision to support that brief. I think supporting people's right not to be discriminated in the workplace, regardless of what the issue is important. That's all that was. It was a signature on a form. That is my decision to make as an individual. And once again, I don't lose my rights either. At least I would hope not. Regarding the bills, I do believe that there has to be a standing, and the attorney and I have talked about this. There's so much stuff that comes up. Some of that is unfortunately generated, which you didn't mention, by the level of activity of some of the individuals that are also directly emailing the attorney. And that is creating costs, and they're listed on the bill, which probably is why some of the folks are not happy. But the reality is, if you contact the attorney as a person in the residence, you have a right to do that, but we're going to get billed for that. So I request that you go through the manager as well. And I agree that all of us could probably do better to help minimize the cost. I also agree with the routine phone call issues. That is something that I have discussed with the attorney, that routine phone calls, but a routine phone call that's 2-3 minutes is one thing, and then a phone call that lasts 15 or 20 or 30, that's a different issue. That they're not going to work for free. Lastly is H2O did drop the ball, and we were behind the 8 ball with 14 days to go or 20 days to go? I don't recall, Attorney Rodriguez.
They were different deadlines because it was.
But the two were what? The ones, I think it was like 20 days. It was a very short period of time, because I remember that you stepped into that, and I appreciate the 10,000 pages that you put together to make sure we would be reimbursed $1 million. That is not a small deal, and no staff could not have handled that. This was a legal brief. I spoke to other municipalities as well. There were, I think, 200 cities that were told no funding. Is that correct?
Yes, and your county, the county commissioner assigned to your city, your area of the county. What's her name?
Sally Heyman.
Thank you. She recently spoke out at a commission meeting about the delay in FEMA funds. She's gotten involved, and
So it's $50 million for the county. Is that right? That they haven't paid the county $50 million, I think?
But she was also saying on behalf of the municipalities in her district, there's a delay on this IRMA money. I don't think the county's received any. I was reading a memo from from Mayor Jimenez, so...
$50 million, I think it is.
I mean, it's not just a village issue, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, so I did want to communicate with you that some of the comments made were that I think are wholly inaccurate in this situation. With that said, I also agree we have to maybe have a workshop and discuss the best way to handle it, and also recommend us how we can manage our time better and yet get a lot of these things that were backlogged done. And then I think if there, I'm sorry, did you want to join in on anything else?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, hearing some of the conversation, I think it's very, and it's just to summarize what I was saying before, it's very important, because I think some of the comments have been more directed towards the attorney and Gray Robinson, as if they're billing us for fictitious work almost.
Right.
These bills are coming, no, hold up a second. These bills are coming from contact with the administration and with the commission. So we need to have this workshop because we need to all get on the same page and understand that we need to, if we need to rein in ourselves, we need to rein in ourselves. We need to set some type of guidelines. The problem with this village goes to kind of our workshop on procedures. We kind of just fly by the seat of our pants sometimes when we need to really kind of sit down and clearly articulate and have these things laid out. So I definitely think we need to have this discussion sooner than later.
No, I agree. I just think the only thing that I had an objection to was the issue that somehow that things were done for me, and that is the political turn here, but it is not accurate. I just want to make that it's totally inaccurate. Yeah, and I just want to make sure before then I'll give you the final say.
You can go. Vice Mayor can...
Vice Mayor.
I don't want to have a workshop, because a workshop, there's no voting. This agenda item that I want, I have a serious problem with this law firm. And I think that we need to have a discussion, that's voting discussion, not a workshop where there's no voting, on whether or not to keep this law firm. I have a major problem. If it makes it seem that I am saying she's the only one that's billing us, it's not. I'm not questioning just her. I'm questioning the whole law firm. On page 7 alone, there is seven people, 3 attorneys, that have billed us so much. Let me see, just to get my facts straight. 7 people. That's 3 lawyers, and I think these are, 4 law clerks, came out to a total of $12,622.50 for $225 for every single one of them. I thought law clerks or interns were $125.
I'm sorry, but I don't know where you are.
Okay, look, I'm at the June bill, page 7, where it's some of the professional fees.
Can you allow her to get to there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
She asked me now.
Okay, I'm seeing...
Okay,
5.
so I see 3 attorneys there. Who's the other 4 people? Excuse me, 6 people there.
Here, could you find it on here, please?
Right. It's right there.
Page 7.
Page 7?
The bill dated June 11th or July 11th in terms of invoice date?
Invoice date is July 11th.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Deb LaFleur is a shareholder. Anastasia Protopapadakis is a shareholder. Tom Lafredo. Deb LaFleur is a shareholder. Anastasia Protopapadakis is a shareholder. Tom H. Lafredo is a managing shareholder. Jack Brennan is a senior associate attorney. Julia Mandel is a board-certified shareholder. I am a senior associate attorney.
Okay, my question is, shareholders are billing us $225 as that they're an attorney?
They're attorneys.
They're attorneys. They're high-level attorneys.
I remember when we hired this firm that we were going to have one attorney basically representing the village, not having three attorneys almost 6 attorneys representing us. I mean, in 1 month. And it doesn't say what each of those attorneys' time frame and when they did it. It just says the hours that they put in.
It does. That's a summary at the end of the bill. All of their individual time narratives are throughout the bill.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just give you an example. And by the way, we pitched a deep bench. I believe that was the phrase that was thrown around about our firm. We did not pitch one attorney. I think the reason we may have won out is because we had attorneys that could do everything. We pitched as a soup to nuts firm. And I'll just give you an example of how that came in handy. Your former police chief filed for bankruptcy, and it potentially affected all the pending lawsuits that we have. Jack Brennan is a bankruptcy attorney in our law firm. That's why he billed 12 minutes to review the bankruptcy documents we received to determine whether that would result in a stay in these lawsuits where you're trying to wrap up. That's just an example.
I just want to say something. That's a big deal. That's not a small deal.
But we have insurance and leader cities cover that. That's what they cover. And the point
that doesn't stop us, our attorneys having to protect us as well.
We oversee their handling of the case as the village attorney for the village.
I just want to get clear. Was John Herring representing your firm when he worked here? John Herring. I'm not talking about John Herring. I always get those mixed up. Did John Herring work for your law firm?
John Herring was of counsel at Gray Robinson. He was not a partner, but he was an attorney with Gray Robinson when he served as village attorney for this municipality.
Right. So this commission voted to keep the same law firm in. So we should have had the same representative that he gave us. You should have been giving us. I don't understand why this law firm didn't come back with the 3 attorneys when he was around and give us a different advice. I just have a major problem with this bill. I mean, not only this particular invoice is, I just think that this commission was misled.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Tudor, you want to?
I think right now there's 2 distinct issues at hand, and I think they should be divided out into 2 separate things.
Thank you.
I think there is. You have. I think the one about whether or not we maintain a relationship with Gray Robinson should be, if you want to present, you could present that at the next commission meeting.
Yes.
But I think that is one conversation that if Vice Mayor Samaria wants to have, that's one discussion we can have at the next commission meeting. But I think the other important issue is talking about how we can rein in the fees and ensure that going forward, like for example, the phone calls are one thing. The other thing is not being billed for 2 attorneys if they come to a commission meeting on their convenience, on the firm's convenience. So we just want to have a discussion about, clarifying that information as well.
Just a moment, please.
Well, we need to have a conversation, no matter who the law firm is.
Okay.
And let's say next month, it's John Doe's law firm that's now representing the village. We still need to have a conversation where we're talking about how we handle our interaction with the attorney. We need to talk about because these fees are mounting up because of village business, because of conversations with commissioners and such. So
and things were not getting done before either. So
no, I agree with you need to have a conversation, but my question is, we have had lawyers how many years representing us, and we have never had this problem in the past.
Well, I think we're spoiled by John Hearn. When John Hearn left, that was the worst gut feeling in the world.
Well, he was getting paid $155 an hour too, so there's a reason why the bills were much lower at that point. Too, his hourly rate was ridiculously low. So, and not normal for most places. If I may, just for a moment, to be fair to everybody, since we're trying to get 9A, it's 9 o'clock. We have a full agenda. I'd like one more shot, and then we're going to go ahead and conclude it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page when we made the decision of who we were hiring, what's in the contract, what was supposed to be the understanding. I just want to make sure that that's clear. And Village Attorney, I know you mentioned that there's a lot of zeros in your bill. I'm looking at it. I don't see it. I know when I do my billing, I usually have it bold where I say discounted as a courtesy or something like that.
Which invoice date are you
I'm looking at the invoice dated July 11th, which is the June billing.
Oh no, the discounts were in the June 11th bill. When I was referring to the June 11th bill.
So, I mean, the large quantities and phone calls. I'd like to know what are phone calls in the ordinary course. That it was our understanding that we wouldn't be, nickel and dimed for those. I see several entries that are like over 3 hours that are supposed to be prepping for, commission meetings, and that stuff adds up. So what's important to me is just to make sure we're on the same page as to what we all understood when we hired the firm. And I think we've exhausted that, and we've stated that. The last meeting, again, I was fine with the 15, the same as Commissioner Tudor because of the FEMA issue, but I really would like to get a rein on this. And when I see the next bill, I'll be able to make a comparison. But it definitely needs to be reined in so that we're not being overbilled and having to exceed what we are comfortable to pay.
And I would really urge the Commission to consider, designated a certain number of designated office days a month, so that those are the days, and they can be meaningful discussions. If village officials need to communicate with me about something because they know I'm here, I think that would help a lot, because it's true, a .1 call, a .2 call. If you look at it through a keyhole, it's not a big deal, but if you're getting calls from various commissioners or village officials, and certainly that's my job, but those calls add up. So I would appreciate some sort of structure going forward so that things can be triaged in their communications with me and planned for. I mean, emergencies arise. I'm not saying I shouldn't pick up the phone if there's an emergency, but I think that would help a lot.
Okay, but I still think that I'm not hearing the response of whether or not where we agreed when we hired Gray Robinson, or what was presented to us, that, certain calls would be included. Even with what you're saying, we're still going to get billed for those calls. So I still don't have an understanding of what types of calls would be included in the general. Okay, that's not something that's going to be billed.
I would be comfortable saying that if it's a .2 or a .3, which is, for those who don't know, law firm bills, it's 12 to 18 minutes. Mm-hmm. Anything under that, provided that's the only time I received a call that day from that yes, that should probably just go with the job. But if an issue arises and I'm receiving a bunch of calls throughout the day from various village officials on a matter, because there have been fires since I took over this municipality as village attorney, and my phone rang a lot. But again, I think standing calls once a week or designated office days or something like that would help structure that. But at .2, .3, unless it's incessant throughout the day, I think I would agree with that could be calm.
If I may, we are at now 9.
I just want to make one last comment.
I would appreciate if we could, it's 9:09. I'd appreciate, you have 3 items alone.
I know.
No, actually 4 items alone.
One of the things is you're making a call process that we're getting a lot of calls or a lot of conversations with commissioners. I'm looking at this June bill, and I see Commissioner Jenny Zaldel once, me a couple times. I didn't see any with William Tudor. Most of it was with the mayor. That's all I'm saying. So if
I
you're
said
gonna make
officials. Just to be clear, I said village officials.
Okay. With that in mind, I'm going to ask that if we may move on to a vote one way or the other. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 9A, which is an ordinance of the Village of Biscayne Park for the increase of the $15,000? Is there a motion? I'll make the motion since nobody else has. I make a motion to approve Ordinance 2019-02 Budget Amendment, second reading. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll have a vote on the floor for this. This is a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Troopman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Samaria?
No.
Commissioner Johnson Sardella?
Yes.
Commissioner Tudor?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. Okay, now we're going to move to old business. Vice Mayor Samaria, this is your item.
Madam Attorney, this is in reference to the cancellation. Are you going to say? Because otherwise I'm going to go through with the agenda item.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
This is the cancellation of the March 5th meeting. Since you didn't object to before, that means I can go on with the item.
I never objected to this item.
This you did the last two meetings you had.
I have not.
Yes. You said that it was not a purpose for us to talk because they all have attorneys. Okay,
I never said
sorry.
I couldn't proceed.
Okay, so anyway, since we're gonna have it,
And if I'm just going to ask, with respect, just for everybody, we have 2 hours left. Just make sure, please, if you could consolidate as much as possible. Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna do my best, but I am not gonna be rushed when I have an agenda item.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Serving as Commissioner and now Vice Mayor for the residents of Biscayne Park is an honor and great responsibility, which I believe there's members of this commission that are not living up to that. As commissioners, we took an oath of office. Mine was so special, Mayor. I had the honor of having Dade County Commissioner Sally Heyman do the honors. She wrote a special one just for me. I was going to read it, but I'll skip it. There are things that happened since I've been on this commission, only been 7 months, which actually more, that has upset me. Agenda items not being brought back after workshops when it should have been. Workshops being canceled without going through the proper channels. A mayor interfering in everyday operation of the village. There are more, but that is for another day. One thing that disturbs me the most is the cancellation of the March 5th commission meeting. I was first informed by the city manager when he called me not to ask me if I could attend, but that the meeting was moved to March 19th because we would not have quorum. I told him that was strange, that we had 3 commissioners would not be able to attend just days before the meeting. I asked him whom they were. He didn't respond. He informed me that he knew that 2 could not attend before that. I asked him how. He said at the February workshop, which was just a week earlier, I asked him whom they were. He still refused. I asked him why he didn't inform the rest of the commission at the workshop about this, and he said we still have quorum. I was upset to hear this, and I let him know that. To this day, we still don't know who the 3 of the 5 commissioners who could not have attended. I figured it out myself along with the residents that it was the mayor, Commissioner Weiss, and Commissioner Jenny Johnson Sardell. What was strange was that all the commissioners were seen that day at the meeting by many residents. The day of the meeting, they were all seen. We learned that the April 2nd commission meeting by Commissioner Jenny Sardell, when she informed the residents and commission that she was able to attend, but someone reached out to her and told her that the meeting had to be moved to March 19th because there was no quorum. The same person that told her that also say that to the other 2 commissioners. We don't have that answer. What really upset me was that when she made that statement, not one of the remaining commissioners didn't ask her who told her not to show up. I have to say that I was one of the commissioners that didn't, because I was down at the other end. I couldn't hear her because sometimes she talks low, but that's no excuse. I didn't ask that question either. Now there's over 3 commission meetings, or actually it's more than that, it's about 5 now, still don't have the answer. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Jenny Sardell to having the courage at the April meeting to inform the commissioner she could have attended, but upset she didn't tell us who told her not to come. She could have kept quiet and taken the heat as one of the 3 commissioners that couldn't attend. There are people that might say, why is Commissioner Samaria bringing this up? Why don't he let it go? After all, we was informed by the people at the administration this wouldn't happen again. Why would anyone care about this meeting being canceled? We did have the meeting 14 days later. Well, they're wrong. Charter procedures were not followed. Here are some of the examples. Procedure was not followed. It cost the village unnecessary funds to re-advertise a variance that was due to be discussed at the March 5th meeting. It was brought up at the March 19th meeting by former Mayor Ross that then confirmed by the attorney that we could not hear the variance because we had to be re-advertise it, and we had to move it to the April meeting. We wasted at least an hour hearing the variance in the March 19th. If it wasn't for the resident bringing it to the attention of the commission and the attorney that was not allowed. It was moved to May meeting, where we heard 3 variances because that took the whole evening. We had to move all the village business that evening over to June, which in turn cost the village time and money. According to our charter, the commission is the one that sets policy and is the only ones that can cancel meeting, not the city manager. As a commission, we have never voted on this. Section 2.16 meetings, Section 4.2 commission meetings procedure. I believe there might be some other ethic violations, some sunshine violations. If any commissioner spoke to her or instructed the city manager to get someone else not to show up. Excuse me. There are many questions that need to be answered. Here, excuse me. Here are a few. I apologize. Who called Commissioner Jenny Saudell? When was she called? What was the purpose? Were other commissioners also told not to come? Was there a reason given to them, and what was it? Since we know that at least 3 commissioners could have attended, what was the real reason this meeting was canceled? The only way that a commission meeting can be canceled has to be done by resolution, which must be voted on by all the commissioners. The meeting is advertised. The commissioners must show up the night of the meeting. Roll call is taken by the village clerk. If there are only 3 commissioners present, then there is quorum, and the meeting proceeds. If there is not 3 commissioners present, then the meeting is canceled and rescheduled. This is the only way. There is an old saying that if we don't learn from our past history, we tend to repeat itself. I hope I didn't mess up that quote. As I said in my last item, we need to hear the voices and confirm the commitment to the public to help build a better community for us all. We as commissioners should be concerned that someone pulled something over us and take things into their own hands and think that they can decide how and when we do business serving the residents of Biscayne Park. Since you are the leader of this commission, you should be more upset than others that this was done, Mayor Trotman, unless it was you that organized this. If you truly care about this village and understand the well, okay, I'll skip that part. Okay, so I'll open it up and then I'll make my motion afterwards.
Anybody? Floor is all yours.
I was going to, since he had some questions, I was going to.
I just wanted to comment on one thing, and I think I mentioned this at the April 2nd meeting, that the only person that I speak to with regard to meetings would be the village manager, and that was my statement during that meeting. If I didn't, I apologize that I didn't say that, but the only person that I talked to with regard to meetings,
you did state that.
Manager. I'm saying it now. Like I said, I apologize if I didn't, but I don't want to seem as if I'm keeping that secret. That would be the only individual I speak to. The village manager.
Anybody else? Nope. Make your motion. Did you have a comment? I asked anybody else.
Yeah, no, I was seeing if there was anything further, or if we wanted to, if you were going to ask the village manager any questions or anything along those lines.
Well, the question is.
But I'll make my
Who's got
statement.
the floor?
And then I'll throw the ball back to you. No, this is something that has been coming over meeting after meeting after meeting, and so I definitely think it needs to get resolved, put away, closed out, so that we can start moving forward on actual business that needs to get conducted. I think this also goes to why we desperately needed to have a workshop on establishing tougher policies and procedures, and you know, that's why we also discussed having language in there about how to deal with if it comes out that there's an issue with the commissioner, how to deal with that, having that type of at hand. But just and I think I may have said this before, but I think the conversation I had would probably have been similar to probably what most of the other commissioners had. That meeting I was asked if there was an issue with did I have any issue with the date being with any particular date because we didn't have quorum for the meeting. So I think that what we probably should do is make sure that we lock down if it's, if we think that the language needs to be tightened up that's there. I think we need to have, stronger language that if there's not quorum, that the commission meeting should still be held, and then the 1 or 2 commissioners who are there can at least take roll call. We can acknowledge that there's not quorum, and then we can end the meeting. I think having that clear language in there would, and there's language that's in there, but I could see where it can be interpreted different. I mean, it's a little loosey-goosey. So I think we need to lock that down, and I think doing that, if we would have had that language to begin with, I think it would have resolved this issue. Wouldn't have even have come up. So, I'm glad we're able to finally get this discussion so that we can get this issue resolved, and then move to other pressing matters.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, there's no comments from outside.
Excuse me, but we still haven't answered the question. We had quorum. We had 3 commissioners, Commissioner Samaria, Commissioner Tudor, and Commissioner Jenny Santaro that could have been there. There should have been no reason that this meeting was canceled. We still haven't answered the question. Who told Commissioner Jenny Santaro not to come? The question is this that
She just said that I told her.
Okay, then why, let me see, we have March, we had April, May, June, July, and now August, 5 months. This could have been told to us in the April meeting or the May meeting. Now why all of a sudden now it's coming to now August and everybody's going to finally told us that the city manager is the one that told her not to show up, when it could have just been said in April or May. It could have been said at that time.
Wasn't
it
an ethics issue?
No,
There is currently, my understanding, I'm going to pass this to the attorney at this point.
Yeah.
I have spoken to the ethics.
Excuse me, the attorney has the floor, please.
No,
Thank you.
I have the floor.
No, you don't have the floor.
No, I didn't
She has the
finish
attorney
with
has
my
the floor.
conversation. When I finish, then she can get to...
Let him finish.
Let him finish.
Let me
Go.
finish. Thank you. I spoke to the ethics. I had a meeting with the ethics. There was no reason that this agenda item could not have been brought up. None whatsoever. So I don't know who you spoke to, but I spoke to the ethics about it. And this item could have been brought up.
No, the attorney has the floor, and then I'm going to take the floor. Actually, I'll take the floor first, if you don't mind, attorney. You went to the ethics board. You made allegations specifically about me. While I'm not supposed to do that because it's an ethics violation, is under investigation. Nothing's happened, never been noticed, nothing. So let me be very clear. If you continue to make false allegations, I will tell you right now, I will take legal action on you. You have made about, let me finish. You have, no, I get to finish.
You're making an
You're now
accusation I'm not
interrupting.
going to tolerate.
Point of
Listen
order.
carefully. I didn't
Point
make
of
any
order.
ethics violation
Excuse me,
against you. Okay?
everybody.
Be quiet.
No, everybody calm down.
I didn't make
This
any
is
allegations against you,
ridiculous.
So you don't know.
This is the floor.
Everybody have a conversation.
This is the floor.
When you're talking, then you can defend.
You've made
Please.
several false allegations this evening.
Not
And
to
it's,
the ethics.
as I said, you don't even let me speak. As usual, you're the one interrupting. You've taken up most of the agenda tonight and several nights in a row regarding a rescheduled meeting, regarding stuff. You don't seem to want to get any village business done whatsoever. But you want to go after Commissioner Wise, myself. You want to call AG's offices. You want to call ethics. And it's nonstop. When you took a commitment to run for it was for the betterment of the village and 3,100 people. But that's not what's occurring here. And instead, you demand, and yet you don't have anything in front of us tonight, not one single item that has to do with village business. I accept the fact of your objection to the for the cost for the attorneys. That's a legitimate financial concern. But there's also cost associated with all of this other stuff that's keeping these meetings going on. So with respect, sir, I'm respectful to you. I ask the same in return.
Okay,
and do not make false allegations. And when you're constantly driving by my house, when you make a statement that you know I was home, you're correct. I could not attend the meeting. I told the manager this, did I not?
What is
Thank
that-
you.
what
Did
is
I
that-
direct, hold on, because you want answers, you're going to get them tonight because I'm done.
Good.
Mr. Manager, did I ever once direct you in any way, in what shape or form regarding this meeting?
No.
Thank you. Now, I shouldn't do that because I should have counsel here, okay, because you're the one who's made allegations. But I'm not the one last meeting who flagrantly was trying to get Mr. Tudor to violate sunshine right in front of us before the meeting. I was not the one who was sitting here telling people you're talking to Mr. Tudor. With all due respect, I don't for 1 minute think Mr. Tudor, I watched him that night, did anything. But what I'm suggesting to you is you need to mind your own shop and work on the village business and stop attacking me 24 hours a 7 and do other people's business. Your floor.
Okay, great. You're making that I made allegations to Ethics Committee. The only allegation I said to the Ethics Committee, and you can call them up to ask, if you're going to make statements, have your facts, just like the attorney didn't have their facts.
Tone.
Ethics, I made a call to the ethics saying about the cancellation of the March 5th meeting. That is all I said to the ethics. I have never talked to the ethics about you or about any other commissioner. So have your facts straight before you make allegations. I've never made any allegations against you with the ethics. I don't know who you got that from. And driving by your house, in case you don't know, I have a business in Biscayne Park. There is plenty of customers that I have there, and I'm allowed to. Same thing as everybody's saying, why am I always at Chuck Ross's house? Why am I always driving at other houses? That's because they are customers of mine. And also because they are residents, and I go out to get information to learn to do my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. I don't make any accusations. All of this could have been taken care of at the May meeting. Now, great. The answer that you give to me, okay, fine. That's great. This could have been done in May. This could have been done in May, and it wasn't.
Now, with respect, it's 9:27. Is there any motion that you'd like to make with this agenda item? Sir.
I want the answers. I still have not gotten the answers.
If it's an action item, is there a motion you have on the floor?
The motion is I want the answers of why this meeting was canceled. That's the motion. When the city manager says he doesn't have the power to cancel the meetings. The only one that can do it is the commission, the whole commission as a whole,
okay.
Not the city manager.
Unless you have a motion on the floor, I think this item is
I want
discussed.
the answers to why this meeting was canceled. That's the motion.
Well, he should. If the manager wants to speak to it, he should be allowed to, because the accusations, the allegations are being flung this way and that way.
No, they're being flung right here.
Well, it's.
And I've had enough.
Well, and I understand that. And to be honest, I've had enough. The fact of the matter is, this goes back to the commission not getting work done because there's too much fever for political theater.
That's correct.
And while our Vice Mayor Samaria has a right to ask the questions, and it's a valid question to ask. It's a completely valid question to ask. But I will tell you that my recollection is of the reason why it was not discussed earlier on, because there was comments made that there was an ethics allegation made on this, and the commission as a whole, I believe at the time, there was a consensus that we should table this, hold off until we find out what was going on with that. So that was part of the delay. Now, there's a lot of statements that get tossed around by commissioners, residents. There's a lot of stuff that gets tossed around up here, and I think people need to be cognizant of the fact that if you're going to throw things around, as a commissioner, I'm just going to ask you, please have documentation with it, because you're just creating a situation, a he said, she said situation, and we need to be making decisions based on facts, on things that we can tangibly hold and
let me ask one question, okay? And that is of the attorney. Did ethics meet with you and the village manager at any point in time?
Yes.
Okay, was this meeting brought up at that time?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, just to be clear, Dr. Jonas, during one of the meetings, stood up and said that there was an ethics violation regarding all this. Mr. Ross has on numerous occasions accused me of just about everything under the sun, all of them false, frankly, every last one of them, regarding a variety of things. And the purpose of this is political fodder. This has nothing to do with village business. It has nothing to do with getting anything done for the village. One of the accusations is the financial matter in front of us. When we took over, there was about $425,000 in reserves. We are now sitting at $800,000, 4 audits clean. And how many other audits did you do? Another 4 for, okay. So no, I'm going to finish my statement. And if the FEMA money comes back, we'll be sitting at $1.4 million. And there was $250,000 unaccounted for in the 2015 audit. So when people make facts or statements and just make it up because it's what they want to believe, that's fine. But let me be clear. I came here to help the village get out of a financial problem. That is why I came here. I came here to help us out of some of our police matters that we have. That is why I ran, and that is why I work hard for the village. As far as interfering, let me be clear, since you've made that accusation sitting up here tonight. Sir, have I ever interfered with your ability to do your job? Have I ever directed staff on any matter? No. So at this point, what you're stating is false because you want to believe a narrative that you create and that other people are helping you create. You ran to vote for 3,100 people in this village, and you're clearly going for your clients more than you're going for any of the rest of the residents.
Okay. As question, they wanted the question. Excuse me.
Stop.
Let me.
Everybody stop.
Please.
Okay.
Jesus.
As
Please.
I've been trying to get for this whole thing, the question is this: why was this meeting canceled? Because listen, Mayor Chapman, will you please stop interfering when I'm talking?
You have the floor, sir, but I'm going to respectfully request. You've asked it now 4 times. Can you please
Well, he hasn't
move
answered
on?
the question.
He has a right not to answer the question if he chooses not to.
And
Well-
I'm not going to answer that question.
Until
Until
May I
this
make a
investigation's over.
statement? At this point, the only person that can either tell the manager not to respond is the village attorney. Right now, I don't want to hear any comments from the rest of the commissioners, even Madam Mayor. The only person right now that can tell the manager to do anything, and at this point I'm irritated because I was the one that also singled out at that meeting that somehow I colluded with people. And I don't appreciate it, and it's why I made the statement I did at the meeting, that I did not collude with anyone to not appear at the meeting. I received a phone call as to whether or not I was free on a follow-up date in March. So if Manager Manners is not going to respond, respectfully, it's the village attorney that needs to say something. This back and forth between the commissioners is not getting us anywhere.
I was just sitting out waiting to have the floor. So, I've been contacted by multiple people in the Miami-Dade County Ethics Commission about this issue. Yes, I met with the assigned investigator because they wanted to interview the village manager about what happened. I was physically present for that. I've been in communication with attorneys in the Ethics Commission about this issue, as well as the executive director himself about this issue, who was our guest at the last commission meeting. As I sit here today, I have not received any notice that the issue is closed out. I haven't. I routinely check because I agree with what everyone up here is saying. It would be great to rip the Band-Aid off this issue and move on. But as I've said, I think at every meeting while this ethics investigation is pending, everyone sitting up here has the right to independent counsel while that investigation is open. And nobody can compel someone to waive that right. So as soon as I hear that it's either proceeding to a formal, to the next phase, or that it's closed out without action, I will advise the commission. I check almost every day, but it's not. And I just so everyone's aware, the Ethics Commission only meets once a month. So the next meeting is next week, August 14th. I'm monitoring it, but just so everyone up here is clear, you have the right to talk about it or not, or have your own independent attorney. I have no reason to think that it's closed. I just want everyone to be aware of that.
Thank you. Now, since there's a motion on the floor and there's not going to be a compelled answer, unless you have something else further, sir, we're going to move to 11C. Okay, 11C, the Commission Branding Workshop held on April 16th. Mr. Samara, this is your item as well.
Commissioner Tudor in January put the agenda item that he wanted to have a communication workshop discussion. During the March meeting, we discussed, was suggested by the mayor, that since this was Commission Weiss field, we could have the communication and branding workshop. During the workshop preparation, Commander Weiss, without any other commissioners okay, changed the branding and left out the communication part. Key questions. This is in a life and safety issue, especially when, key questions. What happens to the communication message? This is a critical issue for our community. We didn't talk about emails. The survey and all the commissioners didn't give any input. Newsletter, we didn't talk about the newsletter. For communication workshop, I would have thought we talked about the emails, on how people can sign up for the emails, the newsletter, and how to get better communications with the residents. At this event, respecting residents was supposed to be one of the areas that we were supposed to talk about. That was not done. None of the commissioners were involved in any of the participation of this event. When I first brought up in reference to Zoom, and I'll give the city manager credit, we did have this conversation, and he said that he thought that it should be turned, the residents' participation should be turned off, and I had no problem. He didn't know that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, about the go-to-meeting, because I think I've confronted him and said, well, why didn't you tell me at the end that there was going to be a go-to-meeting? We were never informed of it. At least I wasn't informed of it. The commission didn't approve for her to do this by herself. I have been told by the mayor the workshops belong to the commissioners. When I brought up my driveway, they told me that the workshop belongs to the commissioners, it's not yours. We didn't approve the spending for the survey or mailing out the poll company. We didn't approve to do this go-to-meeting. We also didn't give permission to put her business logo on the paperwork that was handed out at the workshop. This might be a sunshine violation. I'm not sure. We definitely didn't approve her to disrespect the residents, which she did at that meeting. There are so many others, like the cost of the mailing, printing, staff, postage, how many pieces were mailed out, and how many responded, who approved the questions. We didn't. How come none of these were discussed at a commission meeting? That is what we are supposed to do at a workshop. I cannot speak for the other commissioners, but I was disrespected by any members of this commission and administration. I was the only commissioner when I first got elected that had his own cell phone and my own phone number, and it was on the website right from the beginning. So everybody knew that I had a cell phone. I received a call from Commissioner Weiss on my personal phone, why that was done, and I'd like to play the conversation that she left.
Attorney Rodriguez.
Just to clarify.
Okay.
Are you saying you had a conversation with Commissioner Weiss?
No, I did not have a conversation. The conversation was left. Listen, will you? Okay. Let me.
I just want to be clear, because that's a big allegation.
Okay,
That's a sunshine law allegation. I just wanted to be clear, she's not here.
Okay. Well, I'll play it. The conversation was left on my personal cell phone. Okay? Thank you for clearing that for me. You're right. Okay. Conversation was left on my cell phone, my personal cell phone, that should have been left on, if you're going to leave a message on, should have been left on my commissioner phone. It was left on my personal phone. So, you have any problem with that?
I mean, you have the right to play it. I think you've asked me that before. It's not a secret, right? But I'm just confused as to what that has to do with branding, but
it's
neither here nor there, I guess. Just.
Huh?
Excuse me, from the audience, please.
I've stated that she's not here.
So you're now going to play a message for somebody who's not here and an item for somebody who's not here.
That wasn't noticed because your memo does not reference this at all.
Doesn't represent, nowhere here to talk about that.
Okay. But this would have been played at the other meetings if she would have been here, if we didn't keep on moving this agenda item. Okay, I'll give it that. I won't play the message. I'll play it the next time. But the point I'm trying to make was that it was a snotty message, that I can say, was a snotty message telling me that I cannot do Zoom, that we have to do go-to-meeting. That was never decided by this commission to do go-to-meeting, was it? Okay. It was not decided by this commission.
Are you asking a question?
I'm asking you a
Okay.
question.
Village Clerk, would you please play back for everybody in the whole audience the vote that was made in the meeting regarding this, please? Is there sound on that? Is there sound on it? No, it's back and one. Hold on, she's in the wrong spot. Hold on, you're in the wrong spot. Excuse me. Hold on, that's the wrong time. Please pause that. Thank you. Respectfully. It should be 104.44, please. Go back to 104.44, please. 44. Go forward, please. A little bit more. A little bit more. So we're not wasting time. Nope, back. That's fine, right there. Is there a motion to go ahead and move to schedule a workshop? I'm going to have you word it if you don't mind. When you want to make the motion worded.
Sure. A motion to schedule a grant foundation work session for the commission and the residents.
Thank you. Second, all those in favor? Thank you. That's it. My only point is, you were offered to make the motion. You deferred to Commissioner Wise. She worded the motion. You seconded the motion. We passed it 4-0. That's all I'm going to say.
Did at the commission meeting, because on the agenda item that you put up for the workshop, it says communication.
Okay, I didn't put it up. Let me be clear. Let me be clear, because this accusation has been made over and over again. I don't make agendas. The village clerk and the manager work on the agenda. I have nothing to do with the making of the agenda unless I put an item on, period.
This item was supposed to be, if I'm correct, and correct me wrong, Commissioner Tudor, this was supposed to be a communication. The branding idea I like because she does have the experience in branding. But this was supposed to be a communication branding workshop. It was not a communication branding workshop.
I understand your point, and it's well taken regarding the fact that we did not have the email, the newsletters, and some of the other communication pieces that we all agreed was an issue for the village.
Yeah,
so I happen to agree with you that we need a second workshop on communication. So I don't think that's a bad thing to have. I think I noticed that the chief sent out some emails trying to get folks registered for pet registry and other things. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done to improve communication with the village. And so I support you on creating a separate workshop specifically for communication to the residents on a variety of issues. I actually support that. But my point is, I don't think this has to do with at least I'm hoping that this item has to do with better in communication with the residents, and I'm hoping we can move forward with some sort of movement on that. That's something we all could work together, that we all agree on.
I agree, but we also have to discuss the fact that it wasn't done what it was supposed to be done. I mean, it was supposed to be a communication branding workshop, and it was not done. So it's like, let's push it aside. Okay, we'll learn from our mistakes and continue on. I agree. I want to have but we wasted a lot of time on doing that branding workshop because it didn't accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. The emails, as we talked as a commission, was very important. We need to get emails. Because I brought it up originally when he brought it up, was to have a better communication with the residents. That's the goal, and I think every single one of the commissioners here wanted to do that. So I was scorned by this administration and Commissioner Weiss about what I was doing in reference to Zoom. And that I was disrespected. And okay, part of it is just, I'm upset about it because it was just allowed to get away with it doing it. She was not, if I remember carefully, it was supposed to work with staff. Staff didn't know about it until Monday because I asked city manager, I didn't say Christian, city manager, about when he knew about this go-to-meeting.
Okay, let me ask you a question, okay, because there's kind of two issues here. One of them has to do with Zoom, which has been an issue for AD and other issues. The other issue is the fact that you weren't consulted and you thought the whole commission should be brought in, correct? Am I understanding you correct?
That's what a workshop,
I'm just asking you,
yes,
am I, okay.
as a city manager.
So moving forward for a remedy to make sure that we are moving forward, can we agree to a communication workshop in the near future so that we can address a lot of the issues that were not addressed?
Yes, but the thing I'm saying is you as the chairperson of this commission, have to treat everybody fairly. You didn't treat me fairly when it came to my workshop driveway. She was allowed to do whatever she wants on hers.
Okay,
That's
I'm
the
sorry.
problem I
No,
have.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
but
I have no
anyways-
idea. No, I have no idea. If you want to clarify, that's fine. But when you're once again accusing me of doing something unfairly, I don't understand because
Well,
the driveway ordinance. Did you want to run the driveway ordinance and you didn't? Is that what you're referring to?
The agenda item that I brought up, the workshop, you're telling me that it belongs to the commission, and you're absolutely right. The workshop belongs to the commission. Well, the commission didn't run this last one that we had, and you still don't get it. She ran the whole meeting. If you're saying to me that a person is the point to run it because she has the experience, I should.
Well, that's what we voted on. That's what we voted on.
I
So.
to do my driveway ordinance. Yes, I wanted to do that, and you said no. It belongs to the commission because it's a commission workshop. I just want clarifying.
Because at that time, when we voted on the driveway ordinance, it was for the commission to have a workshop. When we voted on the branding workshop, was to have Commissioner Wise run a branding workshop. Those were two different motions, and they were two different items. I think that's. And just to be clear, I'd like to work on something we can achieve tonight together, and not have more banter. So, if it's okay with the commission, do we all agree we have to improve our commission?
I guess, why don't we make this simple, since this was originally Commissioner Tudor's idea? We keep going back and forth that Commissioner Tudor's idea got dropped off. And I'd love to hear from my fellow commissioner, from Commissioner Tudor, as to when he wants to bring this back up and how he wants to do it.
Well, thank you. Yes, this was a discussion, a workshop that we have to have. However, we've had several other hot issues coming up, but we definitely need to get back to it because I think there's things that have been moving forward on communication with residents that I think the administration is not getting credit for. We did see it in the flyer that went out from the chief talking about the emergency notification system. So I think it's important to talk to residents about that. We need to talk to them. We should schedule a workshop for this. I think it should definitely be after we have a meeting and a workshop regarding attorney fees. And I would also argue that we should have the communication workshop after we have this follow-up meeting regarding from our first workshop about procedures and policies. Those are two much larger issues. But I would like to see us have a workshop on communication. I would like to see us moving quicker on these things. So I would like to see a workshop, no later than sometime in maybe
Can we have
mid or late September.
Okay. What I was going to thinking is, since we have the issue of reining in the attorney's fees, I think if it's proposed on how to do that, we may be able to find a solution that that hopefully will not take a 4-hour-long meeting. Hopefully we can get that done in a shorter, so maybe you can piggyback and have two.
I would typically say yes, but what usually happens in this village is anything that piggybacks on another meeting,
Yep, you're right.
it usually ends up getting reset because...
Okay. I'm just trying to consolidate time a little bit. Okay. So do we have a consensus here that we need to move forward at some point with the communication workshops and Commissioner Tudor will bring it back for us?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Commissioner Wise isn't here tonight, but she is prepared to move forward on the second part of the branding workshop to give the results of the polls and so forth. So we'll be contacting the commission to set that up.
So maybe at that time we could possibly
have
combine
some
it?
dates sent to the
We'll
commission
work
so
on
we can...
combining that with the communication. Because
If that's not
ultimately-
objection, that way we can keep it time certain. So we only keep the branding workshop to a shorter period, and then the rest of the communication for the other.
Yeah, I think it probably would be better to
separate the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, realistically, we know how we're going to communicate. We're going to use email. We're going to use newsletters. We're going to, mail. We're going to use
New website.
website,
Yep.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, but
and
I'm
the
just-
communication aspects of this really follow from the branding. Once we have our brand established and all that, all communications will flow from that. So there's actually a connection here between the two. That said, if you'd like to keep them separate, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean, this whole issue has arisen because the initial concept with these two items were going to be together,
And then only one got
and then only one.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah,
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, just to avoid any
Yeah, I agree.
confusion.
I see your point. Yep.
If I may, and I know Commissioner Tudor has been doing a lot of research on this behind the scenes, and we've been in communication about it. When you have the communication workshop, please consider ADA issues. I know I've been bringing that up, and I know I brought this up before, and Commissioner Tudor has a lot of literature and research on it. So that's my only comment about the communication workshop when you do set it.
Okay. Thank you. So we're all in consensus on that. You have another item? Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is
No.
Mr. Tudor's item.
Mr. William Tudor's item.
Mr. Tudor,
Commissioner
charter
Tudor's
amendments. Commissioner Tudor?
Real quick, this is a lot of issues that seem to be. I know I seem exasperated. A lot of the issues that seem to be coming up have to do with the fact that, my personal opinion, a lot of our ordinances, codes, our charter could be tightened up. Could be language could be better crafted. So what I'm asking here is that the commission move forward on those steps to start looking at the charter, looking at potential changes to the charter. I know one of the issues that came up was with the election, about the
Procedures for cancer, and also the 10 days.
the 10-day.
The timeline for
Yeah, just because of the way. That's one of those things that's in there. I think that there's a lot of conversation about what the roles are of the mayor, the vice mayor, commissioner. I think that they're in there, but they probably could be tightened up a little bit better, more clearly articulated. So, I think it's extremely important because also the timeline that we have the elections coming up next year. So, I think it's very important that I would like to see if there's
May I ask a
an
question?
appetite from the commission to move forward on this. And
May I ask a question? This comes back to getting community input. I think one of the things I'd like to see is community have input first.
Yes,
Because this is a community-driven piece. Changing the
Yes.
Constitution or the Charter is a huge piece.
Yes.
And I think I would really like to see the commission have a workshop first and get input prior. Also to perhaps get some legal counsel on some of those areas for folks that have already done charters. Our charter is very void. Part of the reason why a lot of these issues came up is because the charter is silent on way too much.
Well, and that's why tonight is just simply a discussion item to move forward, because we need to have a workshop. We need to be engaging with residents. We need to be getting, because there's a lot of opinions, some of them very good, of how the charter can be strengthened and tightened up. If I would say there's one weakness, one of the primary weaknesses with this village is the fact that it goes to policies, procedures, it goes to strong, well-crafted language in the charter ordinances. It has gotten us arguably to this point, and this is not new. There's been issues for years on this. So I definitely would like for the commission to support moving forward on a workshop on this.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor.
I like the idea, but I also like to see if we can to change parts of it and put it into an ordinance, but pick the easiest stuff that we can do first and get those ordinances, that way it can get done fast. An example, procedure for canceling meetings, that can be something easy. The one I did about the election 10 days prior, I mean, even the mayor came up with a word, that was simple. That's something that you can vote on an ordinance fast and get it done. I mean, I don't want to see a whole bunch of stuff being put on as one item. And I also think that the residents need to have input. I think that's the most important thing because we're changing the charter. And, I really like for it to go back to the charter board, but I don't know if that's possible, and have them do it.
Yeah, and I think, that's the key thing. Identifying what residents have, what the commissioners may feel need to be changed, and seeing what we can do through other means as opposed to a charter amendment. But identifying the ones that we clearly want to, not that the commission's going to change the charter, but that we're going to present it to the voters and have them make that decision.
And we can do that now for the next election that comes up, so that doesn't cost us any extra money to change the charter.
I'm going to go ahead.
I agree with my fellow commissioners that this is something that is timely now to discuss, since we do have an election coming up. And I think we need to parse out those items that we want changed in the charter or in the charter, since the charter is more of that's the Constitution, that's the document that's not going to change, and to be careful of those items that maybe should be in an ordinance because they need to either be more pliable. So I think it is very timely for us to start to move forward on that, because we know that we have issues, but we need residents' input. Obviously, they're going to be voting on it and should be involved in the procedure.
And so maybe the only comment I'll make is I think we have kind of two items, which is a public workshops, maybe having two is my recommendation, and also then subsequent to those, or roughly the same time as one of them, because it takes 45 days they have to meet afterwards, to then put together the appointments for the charter, because we have to basically, all of us have to pick, I think each pick one person, and then there's two that have to be picked at large.
Question, Madam? If we do go back to the charter vote, is that going to be enough time to get it on the next?
That's a village clerk question.
If it's not, then it's going to kill the whole purpose. We're not going to save any money.
Do you, can you find us the timeline of when we'd have to put that on for us and let us know, so we can back plan?
Yeah, I have an idea.
And can you email that to all the commission so we know?
Yeah, it's.
Would that work?
Because since the charter is the one, charter board is the one that did our charter, I really like for us to go back to them and have them clean it up.
We have to appoint a new board. It's sunset already. So there's a process to appoint a new board, and I think that's in the charter if you read it. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we have a consensus to move forward on workshops and a back plan, a date to figure out how to put the charter review. Do you want to do it October to be ready to pick a board? Is that too soon? Or do you want to just wait and see where we are with the workshop planning?
No, I think October would work.
Good. Attorney?
I just, amending the charter is so important that it should not be rushed. So the more time you have for the charter review board to interact with the residents, get feedback, compile thoughtful findings for the commission's consideration, the better. So I wouldn't delay in appointing a new charter review board to get that process started, because I know the residents have.
So September rather than October?
Yes.
Okay. So then each of us will have to come back with our appointee ready for September, as well as two at large, and for that, I guess the village has to advertise
How
if I'm
many
not
members
mistaken.
are there?
There's 7.
7 members.
Each commissioner picks one, and then there's 2 at large that are voted on.
Okay.
Okay?
And it could be could it be almost the same, not the same people that won it before? Or
It can be anybody. It's up to the commissioners to pick who they choose.
Okay.
And then the 2 at large as well. Okay. Is voted on by everybody.
Yeah. So that's going to be for September.
Ideally, yes.
Good. Okay.
Okay. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Next item is risk management. I'll try and do that quickly since we have so much still on the agenda. The item itself is self-explanatory and written for specifically as we do not have a risk and safety management department, and nor is it possible that we're going to ever have one, I think, based upon our current fiscal landscape. I think it is critical for us to identify and minimize exposure to costly litigation or capital outlay. Risk can occur from various sources, including personnel, facility-related matters, financial exposure, and other areas. It is important to recognize that this village is not self-insured, and it is in our best interest to bolster our policies, procedures, and facility to help minimize these risks. We've already settled quite a few lawsuits over the years that I've lived here, and there are currently other ones, very large ones, pending. Our budget and resources are limited, and litigation is expensive, whether directly or indirect cost to the taxpayers, in such as insurance rates. By reducing our risk, the Commission and staff will better ensure the safety and welfare of all its residents, visitors, vendors, and staff alike. My recommendation is simple. Upon agreement with my fellow commissioners, I'm recommending that we task the manager to work in consultation with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, our attorney staff, and the Public Safety Advisory Board, when appropriate, to review and minimize any and all liability costs across the village operations, either direct action or through policy changes, as recommended, and report back to the Commission on staff's recommendation for further discussion. My point of doing this is simple. And first of all, the cost and so forth, there are grants. I've included those in the documentation. And we may be able to actually get it done for free. We may be able to find people and resources that are local that have risk management experience. But what I found sitting here over the last 2.5 years is there's a lot of voids. And without getting into the specifics, I think those voids and those holes need to be addressed. That's all I have. Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
I agree that there needs to be risk assessment, but I feel like it is already implicit in the staff's job. And since we're already discussed the attorney billing and we're supposed to be having a conversation about that, I hesitate to give direction right now to start having the manager coordinating with the attorney and other staff members to do something that I think is already implicit. But I think it's premature for us to do it now, where we already just said during this meeting that we need to assess attorney billing. That would be my comment, because it's not going to benefit us to start to have to outlay even more money to assess risk. What if there's a failure in the assessment, we're still hit with a lawsuit, and then we're still spending more money? I think it's irresponsible for us to do at this point, right now at this juncture, until we have that conversation.
I'm going to let everybody go, and I'll comment afterwards. Go ahead.
I concur.
I concur too. Yeah.
I think it would probably be meaningful to consult with the chief about the risks as opposed to me. And I have a relationship with FMIT. All I'm going to say is there's money here. There's free money.
That was my point. This is not, find it and use it.
Because it's sitting there, and the fourth quarter round of grants closes September 30th. That's the end of your fiscal year. I don't think there's much legal here, if anything, that you need me for, but there's free money sitting there. You're a member of the League of Cities.
I want to explain why I brought this item without going, and it is a little vague, and that is conscious because of some of the current litigation we have. We have bled money for years, so if you think it's going to be cheaper worrying about the smaller portion, I don't think we can add up the number of lawsuits we spent and the amount of money that's gone out as a result of some of these situations, whether they be generically workman's comp, which some of those you can protect and some of them you can't. I think every other city I know has a risk management department. We don't. And if we don't start to address some of our risk management issues and just assume that the manager's just going to take care of everything on his own, if you look at our rates for FMIT and other stuff, we really need to address this. This is not something you can keep kicking down the road because it's costing us money. If you think it's not costing us money, that's not true.
I guess my issue would be I guess I need to see a little more statistics. Again, I'm not saying that it's a bad idea. There's not enough information for me to determine whether or not, in our size city, it's not something that's implicit in the manager's job. Is this really something that needs to get done without disclosing what our lawsuits are? I'm not saying to disclose confidential information. But I think we're always afraid of spending more money. And if you make the comment now that the money is out there, if it's not clear in the backup and everything as we're assessing this.
It's in the backup.
Of what the cost will be, what is going to be the outlay for us to set something up like this, I probably would be more comfortable. But if I'm instructing the manager to start going out and assessing these things, working with the attorney, I understand the attorney is saying that the police chief is probably better. My hesitation is that we're already talking about the money that we're spending in our attorney billing. And I want to have that conversation before I talk about this. I just want to do things in their order.
Well, I would like to see a budget to go with some of these items. However, I do believe if there's free money out there, we're silly not to look at it.
Okay, Mayor, may I jump in here?
Please.
Risk management is part of what I do every day here. There are things that we look at all the time and correct. I work closely with the chief. I work closely with David Hernandez. I work closely with the attorney. This is ongoing. This is not something new that we're adding on. What is new here is the pointing out of the grants. And that part I think would be extremely beneficial to us if we can get some grant money and have extra eyes on it. I think that will be extraordinarily beneficial. But I don't see it costing the village anything extra to do that other than write a grant, see what we get.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm for this 100% at this time. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think probably some of the concern with some of the commissioners on the dais is I think we're still suffering from a little sticker shock. So I think if it's something that's handled with the manager, the chief, they reach out to the Public Safety Advisory Board, Public Works Director. If we keep it, along inside that little triangle, I think, I think most of the commission would be much more comfortable. I think just right now, because in your memo you talk about, once you throw in attorney, I think everybody after tonight's conversation is a little like,
Well, this was introduced before.
I think the chief has a lot more input on this particular than I ever could.
There's multiple areas, but if you're uncomfortable with the attorney portion of it, you can pull that out. But my whole point of bringing this forward is that over the years, taxpayers have paid a whole lot of money for things that some of them could have been avoided, and that's not. I'm not going to speak that's 100% true for every city everywhere, and yes, we have insurance, but there's some point where FMIT is also going to want us to look at. The other side of this is the insurance carrier. And I'd like to see us work closely with the insurance carrier to minimize our risk. I think that would be something that the insurance carrier would also appreciate.
I mean, I think there's interest from the commission, and if if the manager is going to be looking into this matter with the chief, public works, public safety, that's risk management is already part of his job. So if he's going to be looking at that, then he can come back and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I kind of would like to have seen this coming from an item from the manager, just because I'd feel more comfortable that he's had his conversations with his department heads as well.
Just for the record, before I put this item on here, you want to go ahead? Because we had this conversation.
Go right ahead.
I put this item on because I thought it was timely. I thought there was a grant opportunity, and I also think it's important that we also show the taxpayers in full transparency that we're trying to do everything we can to minimize some of the liability issues that we have. And because we don't have a risk management department, I wanted to give it the weight that it deserves. Where other municipalities have complete risk management departments, we can't afford it. So I wanted to see what we could do to support the manager in doing this and support him in any way we can to create this, whether it ends up being a budgetary item or not. But I do think I don't want to give him another unfunded mandate with more stuff to do and no support. So that is why I brought it to the commission.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we come back with an idea about what type of outlay there's going to be to the village for this, if there is any, it's going to be, we still have a budget workshop coming up. We still have that. So, we'll have some numbers and see if that's something that we can do.
That's fine. Any other further comments?
No. I mean, I'm all in favor of getting grants when we get good grants. But at this point, I don't want to spend any more money of the village money until we get this attorney fees and all this other stuff straightened out. We have a lot of other expenses that we need to take care of. So I'm all in favor of getting grants that can always help us improve. But at this particular moment, I can't support this.
Okay. So is there any, I'm gonna just make a small motion just to say that the commissioner supports that, does this village have consensus to support and minimize risk for the village and to support the manager as he brings forth? Is there any objection to that motion?
Repeat that again.
It's a simple motion.
Yeah.
Do we all agree that risk management is a priority in the village and that we will support the manager as he deems appropriate for us?
I don't understand what that means.
It means something simple, that the manager will come to the commission and be supported on risk management issues, and we're bringing that out in the forefront. That's simple. It's a policy piece.
I have a real problem in coming to the commission publicly with risk management issues because that
Right, which is part of the,
publicly
right.
the vulnerabilities.
Right.
So-
I said to the commissioners individually, not, I should
Individually,
have
okay,
said
I'm sorry.
commissioners individually, not the commission. And that's why this is such a difficult issue to bring up and give you specifics on. That's why the information here is more generic. No, not at this time.
Just to be clear, I understand the directive is that I'm not to touch this unless it comes up at another meeting. I have no intention of having anything to do with this.
Okay.
Okay.
So then, Madam Mayor, why don't, for the public and transparency, just reiterate that, that motion or that directive that you want a consensus on, where the manager is liaisoning with staff and the police chief, so it's clear that we're not saying
Why don't you,
the attorney at
go
this
ahead.
time.
That's fine. I pulled the attorney out of it. That was what I did.
If I'm understanding correctly, is that we're asking that the commission support the manager in liaisoning with staff and the police chief with regard to risk management, and to bring those items to each commissioner individually.
And the departments.
And the department.
Department heads, yeah. Okay, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, my commissioners. Okay, so now we'll move to new business. Miami-Dade County Municipal Clerks Association waive the fee. Manager Manners.
The village clerk has, as part of the Miami-Dade County Municipal Clerks Association, has received a request from the association to use the log cabin for their annual, I believe it's a quarterly luncheon, not annual. And they want to use it on October 25th from noon to 2 p.m. And they're requesting that the commission waive the fee for that. And I think that would be a nice thing to do for us to welcome the Clerks Association here.
Does there need to be discussion on this, or can we move forward with the motion?
What's the fee?
The waiving the fee for 2 hours.
What is the fee?
Yeah, well, I don't know off the top of my head what the fee is for that. Okay. Roseanne, do you know, or?
It's 125
Is it 125?
with a 250 deposit.
Okay, is there a motion to waive the fee?
I'll waive the fee. Make a motion to waive the fee.
The log cabin for October 25th, MCA luncheon meeting from noon to 2.
I have a legal question. In the past, when fees have been waived, do you require any kind of premises liability waiver when you open up village facilities to organizations?
Speaking of risk management?
Okay, I would like to say that as the village attorney, I think we should get those.
That was my point about risk management. I'm just saying, if we don't do these things, then that's what we have to look at. I have no problem. Dare I ask if we can get a form from somewhere without having?
We have forms for that. I would, and this isn't about the Clerks Association, this is just in general, it should be a matter of course that if you're going to waive or hold an event at all in a village facility, you should always have that conversation.
So will you work with the manager on making sure that process is in play?
Yeah, that's one of
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a motion on the floor, and it's a second, correct?
Yeah, second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Application for board members. Manager Manners?
We have a few board openings. There's one on Planning and Zoning, one on Parks and Parkway, and two on the Foundation. We've received, I believe, 4 applications, 2 for Planning and Zoning, and 2, I'm sorry.
It's one for planning and zoning.
Yeah, 2 for Planning and Zoning, 2 for Parks and Parkways. And so
Do it by ballot?
we have a ballot. Roseanne?
Yes, everybody has the ballots in there.
Where?
Where?
In the back.
Oh, in the back?
I was kind of stuck at the back.
It's on the iPhone.
I don't have the ballot.
Yep, it's here.
Before we vote, I just want to ask the question as to the timeliness of these votes, whether or not this has to be done tonight.
If it has to be done tonight?
Right, like is there any timing issue with regard to these? I'm just addressing the issues that were raised
Yes.
during public comments.
We did.
Because of the fact that they give me pause, I don't want to ignore a public comment that was of that caliber, and I think that every commissioner here needs to either see for their own eyes what was being raised, and if we're all still fine with our choices, then that's fine. But I don't want to ignore a serious statement that was made.
I'm sorry, what was the statement?
The statement was there was a non-specific allegation about a board member, nothing specific. Excuse me. Excuse me. Do not interrupt further. The problem I'm having is we have an agenda that was approved. We didn't remove it from the agenda. As far as I'm concerned, it's on the agenda and it's approved. I don't see any reason to delay this. I just don't.
Legally, your code says you're supposed to fill vacancies at every regular commission meeting. I'll read it so it's clear. During regular village commission meetings each month, appointments will be made by the village commission to fill vacancies.
It doesn't give a timing, it just says that they need to be
Right,
filled
exactly.
at every regular commission meeting.
Right.
And when I look, I can only give my stance if when I look at an application or I'm thinking of people that I'm selecting, I'm entitled to either ask follow-up questions with regard to whoever is applying. If it's a quasi-judicial board, obviously I want people that have veracity and are impartial. It's everything that I look into when I'm making a decision, and that's the only reason why I bring it up. It's not to be unfair to anyone. The statement was made tonight.
If it has to be done tonight, then yes. But if it doesn't have to be done tonight, then I don't see why we can't move it to the next commission.
That is up to the will of the commission on this one. It's according to what Rebecca just reported, that's typically how it's done. I think each of those boards has a quorum anyway without this fifth person being added. But, so it's not like the boards won't continue if we wait a month. But simultaneously, we've got people here, we've got applicants here, and we've got vacancies. So it's
And I've done my
the will of the commission on this.
I've done my homework on these candidates. At least I feel comfortable I have, much as one can. So unless there's a motion on the floor, we're going to vote.
The only other thing I would say, I know this came up at the workshop, you have the ability to remove anyone from any board at any time, the way your code is currently drafted. So if something were to arise, I don't want anyone to feel like they'd be locked in to that. If a resident has something, they can bring it up at any time in public comment, and the commission can consider a vote as to whether to remove someone who was appointed to a board. We touched on that at the workshop. You wouldn't necessarily be locked in. You're not. You could remove anyone at any time. You don't even have to give a reason, the way your code is currently drafted.
Is there a motion?
I think to be fair to whoever the person that they're talking about, we need to have more information. An accusation was made.
I'm just going to say I've been the subject of accusations for 2.5 years. And what I'm going to say candidly is there comes to be a point where politics at the expense of other residents and the accusations that are continually made, if you're going to make one, make one. But if not, frankly, I did my homework. I've looked at these individuals. I've gone online. I've done some of the things. So with all due respect, I think this is disrespectful to the volunteers who applied.
Due
No, excuse me. No, just, if, make the motion and then that's,
If you have a motion, you can make it. Is there any motion on the floor?
I mean, I seem like I'm the only one that's made the statement. If anyone, I mean, I'm only one commissioner, and I wasn't basing this off of an accusation. It was off of a statement. Again, I'm only thinking of wanting the best people to fill the position. That's it. I'm not chasing after anyone's accusations. I'm not giving any credence to them. It's simply just to make sure we have the best people in place. We keep saying up here that we want to improve things and we want things to run well. So that is my only basis for making the statement.
But it's based off what one person who may have a bias on. I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
No, a resident raised a point, and it wasn't really, I didn't take it as an accusation necessarily. What I took it as is going back to policies and procedures and having things in place. Maybe there may be evidence that the commission historically and has not
vetted people correctly?
Vetted probably to the extent that we should. So
that goes back to your meeting where we need to, I don't disagree that there should be a better process in place to how we do this.
So I wouldn't see necessarily to make sure that, we're doing what's right for the 3,100 residents that's out there. I wouldn't have an issue tabling this matter until the next commission meeting. That's just kind of how I...
Then you have to make a motion. So if you want to make the motion, make the motion.
All right, I'll make a motion that we table item 12B, the board members' appointments, to the September commission meeting.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion passes 3-1. Okay, we're moving on now to 12C, Manager Manners.
Okay. This was a discussion I wanted to open up with the commission regarding moving to a special magistrate having a code enforcement award or over code enforcement proceedings. We were talking about risk management earlier tonight, and we have encountered a number of issues through the years with this particular board. We found that through our research that it's probably going to be streamlined, move faster for our residents with a special magistrate. We did put in here a quarter, that we could do it quarterly. Have no problem doing it monthly or every other month as well. And so from that perspective, but it's really a matter of getting everything done as efficiently as possible. It takes the personalities out of the process so that it's not neighbor having to, respond to neighbor from, the code board as it currently is. And so I would like to move ahead with this as quickly as possible, actually.
Comments from commissioners? Vice Mayor?
yes, thank you. Okay, okay, it's $800. That the cost is going to be if I read
these are approximations.
Approximate $800 a meeting. Does that include the conference calls if there is any and preparation?
No,
does not. See, so we don't have.
I just want to provide some clarity on that. I cannot serve as counsel to that board. It's in your code. It's in the statute. So the code compliance board would have to get their own attorney. Which would be a separate cost that I know is not in here. And from a legal perspective, I would recommend you either explore that in your budget hearings and assigning an attorney to the code compliance board. There should be an attorney on the days of giving them advice. Or you just switch to a special magistrate altogether and require them to be licensed members of the Florida Bar with a certain amount of experience or whatever.
That's it.
Doesn't our charter say that we have to have the code board? this particular code
Our
board?
charter does set up for a code
Okay.
board. It does not say that we can't have both.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we going to, is it going to be just the magistrate that's going to handle all of it and the code officer? Or is
That-
there going to be part of a board and then you have the magistrate that is the one that almost like runs the board?
No, it
So
would
you're
be,
gonna just have
it would
just the
be,
magistrate?
really we'd be using the magistrate. And on that, but that also provides, if we have a magistrate who also is an attorney, then we have someone who's following the law, who's reducing our liability. And so, and legally moving forward,
Would they have to carry liability insurance as well?
they would have to
require
carry
that?
liability insurance as well, yes.
Just one other legal item. You have a carve-out in your code regarding professional services. There was a comment about procurement. Contracts for professional services are exempt from competitive bidding in your code. That's 2-141 subsection 2.
So you're saying we don't have to get bid?
Right. You don't have to. Now, if you want to play the market, that's different. But just in terms of what your legal obligations are, it's exempt in your code because it's a professional service. Anybody else?
Yes, I can't.
Commissioner Johnson, sit down.
Okay. Well, at first when I saw quarterly, that to me I already understood can't work. It has to be more often than that to have quarterly meetings. That was too much of too untimely. With already what I hear is the backlog with code compliance as it is to begin with. So I guess let me back up, and if this is something that the commission wants to entertain, I think we still need some more information because like our village attorney just said, we have like two options. One, she can't act as the code's attorney. So what is the option if we were to discuss during our budget hearings having an attorney that sits with the current board as it is? And what would be the rework of the numbers if now we want meetings to be held every month with a special magistrate? I just again I understand that the code compliance board probably does need to be streamlined. We do need there to be an impartial board, and all those things are good. I just worry about the outlay of money, and I just want to have it all in front of me while we're having the conversation.
Okay.
Of how much money it's going to cost. Will we need a change in our code if we go this route? Just everything that we need to do in order to appoint a magistrate.
It would depend. I think most magistrates run between 150 and 200 an hour, if I recall correctly on that. So depending on, whether we have a meeting monthly, if we have meetings monthly, that does move it through faster for our residents, which I'm all for, quite frankly. But the meetings would be shorter as well. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be a 4-hour meeting. So I anticipate the annual cost on this. I would say probably I'd like to budget probably $6,000 for an annual cost on this. I don't know that we would need all of that, but I want to, be rather than have to come back and ask for more. I'd rather have that there, quite frankly. $3,200 a year on a quarterly, that would be, that was based on 4-hour meetings 4 times a year, or 3 times a year, excuse me, but, or 3-hour meetings 4 times a year. Anyway, yeah, so it's late. So.
And yes, you would have to probably circle back to chapter 14.
I'm sorry, could you use the mic again? Thank you.
You would probably have to circle back to chapter 14 of your land development code, which covers the code compliance board, to provide that a magistrate or attorney appointment procedure if you take that route for the board.
See,
which I recommend. Whichever avenue you take, I think the commission should explore something there.
Commissioner Tudor?
Yeah, real quick. Most anybody that I talked to when I first ran 2016 knows that I think that the village should be looking at a special magistrate, or to the contrary, having a licensed attorney on the dais with the board. Out of those two, I do lean more towards a special magistrate. I just think it's having the impartial individual up there. I think that's just better for the village, better for residents who have to go when they have a code matter. However, what I'd like to see, I kind of concur with Commissioner Johnson Sardella, I would like to see a little bit better numbers about what would be the cost bringing on an attorney to be with the board, and then also compare that to the cost of the special magistrate alone. Having those numbers, because once again, as I said on another item, we're having this budget workshop next week. We're going to be, we could possibly set aside money at that point. But I definitely think it's long overdue that the village have this discussion. I think we need to do it with the code board, and I think we're going to eventually need to have a discussion about the duties and roles of I'd like to have a conversation about the planning and zoning board at some point as well.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, the planning and zoning board is required, but the code is not. Is that correct? I'm sorry, I'm asking the attorney the question.
I'm sorry, Marie. Do you mind repeating that?
Sure. If I'm not mistaken, the code board is not required. That can be a special magistrate, but the planning and zoning must be a board consisting in the village, correct?
Well,
by statute. I'm springing that on you because I didn't ask you.
Right. Your code currently requires both.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Currently.
Currently, right.
Okay, so here's my question. At a cost for the attorneys, at whatever the rate's going to be to have an outside counsel, be it, how long do the meetings last, usually?
It really just depends. It would be a much faster meeting with a special magistrate, simply because the code
So you'd be
officer-
paying. So you'd be paying for a special magistrate and a board, attorney and a board separate, or just a special magistrate with insurance and liability insurance, correct?
Right, and who's a JD as well. So.
And who's JD?
I'm getting confused. Are we saying just to have a magistrate, or are we saying there's another choice to magistrate with the code board?
No, it would be just the magistrate.
See,
It's a redundancy to have both.
I can't support having a magistrate right now. The code board is a group of residents that knows this village and knows how the different things that happen in the village. I just think the code, one of the biggest criticism is that everybody complained that Gary sticks by the code and does by the code. Isn't that what the magistrate is going to do? He's going to look at our code and he's going to say, this is how it's done. It's not going to have circumstances to look into see if maybe there's a reason why a person did this or... I don't think there's going to be any leeway. It's going to be cut and dry. That person's going to be cited,
It is going to be cut and dry, but that actually is a benefit for the village. Please don't interrupt me. It's actually, from a liability perspective, everything is handled less arbitrarily. Everything is handled correctly, professionally, legally. And so from that perspective, it would be better for the village to have a special magistrate.
Okay. If the purpose of code is to make money, then we can do it this way.
It's not.
If the purpose is to get the residents in compliance, I don't think the magistrate would do that. I think the magistrate is going to say, okay, you're in violation, that's it.
In my experience, the magistrates are actually much more efficient about this. By the time it gets to the code board, someone's already in violation. It doesn't go for a courtesy notice to the code board. And so the magistrates tend to be much more efficient at getting compliance from that perspective.
In your professional recommendation, I'm asking the attorney the question, I'm sorry, not the manager. In your professional recommendation, you've seen different cities do many different things based upon your experience. You've seen it done both ways. Is there one that's less costly? I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
No, I just hate giving that lawyerly answer. It depends, right? But if you craft let's say you did go special magistrate route just to have a conversation, a hypothetical. If you craft your agreement with that attorney in a way that says it's a per hearing fee, it includes prep, attendance, any follow-up drafting of your rulings. If you make it a flat fee per hearing, which is, I think, kind of what some of North Miami's said. I think it probably would be cheaper to go special magistrate unless the commission makes a decision to appoint an attorney or a law firm to the code board and structures that agreement to say anything and everything that's going to happen per meeting is a flat fee of this much, the before, during, and after. And I don't know that
And the liability would then be back on us, correct?
And I don't know that most law firms would be comfortable with that if they're in an advisory capacity as opposed to a presiding capacity, just in terms of billing. There's a difference there.
And what about liability? If we have an attorney attending the meetings and the board remains, the liability is on whom?
Well, it's always on everyone, but
Yeah.
if you require a minimum amount of malpractice insurance remain on file with the manager and the clerk, then you would be protected either way. It just if you do go special magistrate route, my recommendation is that they be a barred attorney.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just real quick. As I said before, I'm in favor of a special magistrate, but given the fact that we're now talking about that, and I agree with some of the comments from the residents and from one of my fellow commissioners that the quarterly meetings aren't going to work. It needs to be monthly. I would argue monthly should be the amount. And we have this information about North Miami. I would like to actually see what the cost may be if we reached out and
You
found
have
some
that
additional-
information? Is it 800?
The only thing we have right here is North Miami.
Oh, other people.
Yeah, let's.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you from directing the manager to do an RFP to put feelers out for what the work is. You're just not required to, but
Yeah.
you could just to give you an idea of the market.
Because doesn't El Portal utilize a special magistrate?
I'm not sure. I think so, but I'm not
'Cause I-
sure.
Even just reaching out to some of our sister municipalities to find out who are utilizing a special magistrate to find out the cost.
Would you be comfortable having a motion to bring back to the next meeting a cost? I'm in favor of special magistrate for a variety of reasons, and one of them is liability. The other is also consistency and taking away some of that volatility that's been occurring, and also some of the issues that have happened over the years, not just recently. That doesn't take anything away from the code board members who have worked very hard to do what's best for the village, and I mean that sincerely. But I am in favor of special magistrate. I just think that is a cleaner way to go. When I did my research, I was coming up with about 5,000. It wasn't 6, it was about 5 for this cost. I think our manager is recommending it. At this point, based upon what I've seen over the years, I think that's probably a cleaner way to go.
Again, I don't have any issue entertaining it and having the discussion. I just think once we started talking about this and it's changing, it's deviating from the original memo, I'm fine with it coming back. I want to think about it. A magistrate, even helping with dealing with our code officer, I don't know if having a magistrate would tighten up how the code officer functions more so than the board dealing with the code officer. These are things that I want to think about, but I also want to see the numbers as they would be when we're making the decision. I don't want to sit here on the dais and kind of do the math and figure out, well, we're talking about something different now. I agree with Commissioner Tudor that we should maybe reach out to our sister cities and see, I'm only looking at these particular, North Miami, that's all we have that we're looking at, and I think we need to look at it a little, cast a further net for us to actually review and have a discussion. So I'm fine with it being pushed over for follow-up.
And doesn't this have to be also be put into an ordinance? Because it is an agenda item, so it has to be put into an ordinance, correct?
As to which part?
Well, if we decide to go with a special magistrate.
Right, that's correct. But for now, it's still in discussion phase because the commission doesn't know what they want to do, which is totally fine.
So at this point, my direction from the commission is to go ahead and get solid numbers from special magistrates look at that before I just wanted to
And
get
to
this
be-
open and the door open on this conversation.
Yeah, and to be fair, also, I think the direction was also to give us an idea what the cost would be for somebody to sit in on the code board meeting as well. There was actually both of those for the attorneys, yeah. But I'm in favor of the special magistrate over that because to me it seems duplicitous as well.
Yeah, I definitely want the information to have somebody that will sit on it if we decide to keep the code board.
And just for the manager, it looks like El Portal and Hialeah both utilize a special magistrate, so, we could
I'll
just
be
reach out
speaking
just
to them
to...
too.
Yep. Okay. With that, there's a request for placement of items on the next meeting's agenda. If there's any...
Just the one that I mentioned. I'm sorry. Jennifer.
I have a couple of items. I've discussed this with the manager, but I want to bring it up for a discussion with the commission. I know our police chief has really done well in improving traffic and speeding in the village, but I would like to have a discussion with regard to lowering the speed limits throughout the village, because to me, when I drive, I feel like people naturally drive 5-7 miles over the speed limit. So at 25, you still can have people that are coming through here at 30 miles an hour, which I know on my street is way too fast. My husband will see people and try to flag them down. So I would like to have that as a discussion with regard to lowering the speed limit.
Commissioner, that's not a possibility. We've taken that to the county, and they absolutely have refused us on
That's
that.
what they're afraid of.
We have approached them with that. After you and I discussed it, we went to the county, and they have absolutely said no to that.
Okay.
So.
I tried.
As full disclosure, as full disclosure, when I went to the DOT meeting, I basically articulated that cities are not being able to manage their own traffic issues, and I made that very clear to Senator Piso, the head of DOT, on behalf of the village, as well as Sally Heyman. So.
And my next item is I think we as a commission need to have a final discussion and deal with the driveway ordinance. It needs to get back on the agenda, and it needs to be dealt with and finalized.
Thank you.
This is too long.
That's the driveway and the swell, because I think it was two different items, right? It was driveway, and then we had a set one for, the workshop was for the swell.
But
it
I
was
think it
originally
needs to be
supposed the
discussed.
driveway.
It's one ordinance, though. It is going to be one ordinance.
And unless we forget the construction.
I was going to bring it up, but I was letting him go first. Yeah. The construction ordinance is something that I have talked about several times. I think there was a concern with cost. I'm going to be honest with cost of attorney's fees. I think some of our stuff has been put on a little bit of a hold because of the attorney fee issue. Is that correct?
To be clear, we were instructed to pump the brakes with the construction ordinance until next fiscal year.
And that's my concern, is that we're pumping the brakes and things that we have to get done, and yet we have an issue with budget. So at the end of the day, we have the money we have, and I guess we'll have to move forward at pace. But I would like to see the construction ordinance come up in September, personally, because I think that's a small enough ordinance that can be worked on and done quickly. It's 10 or 11 items, no?
The attorney assigned to that quoted the village at 5,000, so I don't...
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
I think the Chief, did you want to speak on something?
So I'll be
Motion to me.
I'll be real brief just to answer the question. We're in the process of implementing the first phase of the pilot program with the speed bumps,
Traffic culling.
Speed
humps. The director of public works, or the manager of public works, is going to see what's the community input. Are they too loud? Are they effective? The wear and tear, before we go and make decisions on how we're going to move forward on progressing on the different locations and how many more we're looking at placing. Obviously, we all know, and I want to have full disclosure for transparency, that there will have to be discussions brought to the commission on the allocation of funds in the future for the additional placement of these speed humps. But I want to go into further discussions. The manager myself and the Public Works Manager, Mr. Hernandez, have discussed ideas and different things that are happening across the country. One of the things that we're looking at in a specific city, they created they created a walking path or a running path within the medium, created with a concept where it doesn't damage trees. It's all above ground. So we're looking at ideas like that. We've discussed other ideas on how to protect our residents. I just sent this week, he's supposed to finish this week, a second officer to the on the motorcycle, so we can have more coverage in the motorcycle. We've definitely increased our patrols to 3 to 4 officers almost per shift. So I don't want to say too much today on results because they're going to speak for themselves. But I want you to feel confident that there's not a day that doesn't go by that there's discussions in my office with the team, with the manager, with Public Works on what can we do to make the quality of life for every single resident here better. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't discuss what do I need to do as your chief to make sure that public safety is a priority, whether it's crime or whether you can use your streets pedestrian-wise, vehicular-wise, and feel safe. And we're going to continue on that mission. It's not going to stop. The ideas and the creativity and the freedom that this manager has allowed us to have to be able to think outside the box and try to work different things out has allowed us to look at different things. We will be going out to an area, and hopefully, if it's what I think it is, because I used to work in that city, it'll be something that we can present to the board. But without a doubt, the goal here is to make our village, the safest, pedestrian-friendly, vehicular-friendly village that we can. And that's something that I wanted to share with you, Commissioner. I also had discussions with Mr. Hernandez about the speed limit. I was really concerned, and I get it. I really get it. We issued an arrest warrant this week on an individual who was fleeing from here 80, 90 miles an hour and almost trucking off. Well, I'm not going to get into the case, but it's relating to an officer. The warrant will be served by the county. Another real quick, and I won't take more time. I apologize, Mayor.
I'm just looking at the clock. Just as my commissioners, if we go 15 minutes over, are we okay with that?
Yes.
I'll be 2 seconds more.
Go ahead. No, you're fine.
The package bandit that occurred in Miami Shores, we were able to identify him also as the one here. So we dropped an arrest form, not only for they got him for what they did over there, we got him for what we did. Just so you know the type of, I want you to feel the type of services you're getting here. And I'm not putting down any villages or areas, but it was a lot more severe here, over there. Over here, we had one incident and we apprehended him. And we continue, and it's continuous discussions. We meet every Tuesday to see what can we do with the manager different, how we're going to go about things. And I just want you to have confidence. I know there's at times there's tension, but as far as the staff, the excitement, I am excited to come to work every day. I am proud to be your chief. I don't bend to the knee. I stand firm. I believe. David, if you think I feel passion, I have to control David because David is just too much. We really love this place, and the manager and the leadership up here allows this to happen, and you do too. We give you our all in our heart, so we're going to continue working hard for you. So leave this meeting today with some positive thoughts. Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Matt?
Just to allow Commissioner Johnson Sardella to finish. Is there anything else?
That was it.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add the item that we talked about the attorney's fees and attorney, but I forgot what I was saying. Do you remember it? What was the item I talked about?
I apologize because we had one more item, sir, and it was yours, and I apologize because it was on 12D and it wasn't on here. So I'm gonna back up. I apologize because I just remembered it.
Go ahead. Go off 1 second. I want to thank the city manager for the two members of the staff that he has. The chief, which I think is fantastic, does a great job, and Mr. Hernandez the same way. I can always go to him when I have a problem. I go through you first, but I mentioned something to him and he handles. So I just wanted to pay a compliment to both of those. Thank you for reminding.
And just a reminder, we have about 15, so...
It's going to be really fast.
Perfect.
Okay, this is going to be two items really fast. I have always, since I've been living in this village, the commission has allowed me to put my 9/11 collection. Being from New York, it's very important to me, and I always sign a waiver. So that's not a problem. I want to get permission from the commission to allow me to have my collection at the rec center from September 1st to the 30th, like I always have. That's number one. And number two, we as a village, we don't do, and I don't think this is intentional, but we don't do ceremonies like other cities, Veterans Day and so on. So what I like to do is, I do it every year, where on a Sunday I'll have the memorial 9/11 where people can come and we can honor the victims. I would like to have it not just be this time by Dan Samaria. I would like to have it to be done by the village and this commissioner, since I am a commissioner. And as far as organizing it with the city manager, you don't have to do a lot of work, just approve certain things that I want to go to. I'll do all the inviting of city officials. I just think that as a city, we need to start doing that, have events where Memorial Day, we don't do anything for Memorial Day and stuff like that. I think as a city we need to do that to where the residents can start participating. And I think if you start opening it up to the residents, you'll get more residents participating. I think that can be a way that we can help. And when a lot of people being from New York, and it has nothing to do with just people here that live from New York, but there are a lot of residents that are from New York, and it is very important that we honor the victims. Thank God it didn't happen here. Grateful for that, but it happened in New York. And one of the things on why it happened in New York was when they said 3,000 people died, I said, that much? And they said, what do you mean by that? And the answer is, in New York, we don't like each other, but when we're in trouble, we help each other. And a lot of the victims were police officers and firefighters, even ordinary persons that came down and went back up. And I think that that's something we need to celebrate. So, again, I want to ask the commission's permission to do both of those events.
Okay, so the first motion is you want to have the 9/11, and you don't need fees waived, so that's not a problem. So just to hold the event, correct? Is there any objection on the commission? No.
None at all.
Can I get clarification? So
Sure.
we're talking about two different things. The first is the 9/11 for
Memorabilia.
Right, which you'll sign a waiver for.
Yes, always do.
Okay, and then the other thing is something else, just a general.
Yeah,
okay.
the one I would hold on what do you call it? It was on a Sunday, and I always have an event where people come and they celebrate. I put on not a show, but I put on a little ceremony out there. So what I like to do is, that's usually done by me, but I like to have it where it's a village event.
The only thing I would caution is for us doing this in perpetuity. If you want to have this event, I have no problem with you arranging it and doing it for this event. I just don't want to commit other commissions for perpetuity to do it.
No, commissioners don't want to come, they don't have to come.
No, I'm just saying in perpetuity. So I have no problem doing it. If you want to hold an event on the 8th,
Yeah,
who do you want to invite to the event? You said something about officials.
I want to invite outside officials. I approached Commissioner Hayman. She's very interested. I like to have other cities because it seems that we get invitations by other cities.
And so you want to hold like a city event?
I want to hold this as a city event. And
is there a budget associated with this event?
I don't think there'd be a budget, right?
I don't think, no. I mean,
it'd
this
be
is
just
really letting Commissioner Samaria set up in the rec center like we do every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to do it where it's just Commissioner Samaria doing. I want to be able to have what a city do. So I don't want to do it behind the city's back now that I'm a commissioner. So I like to invite outside people. This time we have a month's notice, so I can have it much better. Usually when we do this, I don't have a month's notice. So didn't always come out right, but I did have a lot of response from it, and especially the kids liked the 9/11 collection. One of the things that when we did the liability, and when they had me to waiver, was because everybody was afraid that the kids would touch it. The kids never touched it. The kids protect more from adults touching it, because you got to remember those kids were not around for the 9/11. So there was a lot of education, and I've had schools that have approached me to do this yearly at a school. The problem with that is traveling. This is a very valuable collection.
So what time would you like to do it on the 8th? And
that's what I would want to get from the commission, what they would think, would be a good time on a Sunday. Could be 12, well, people go to church. It can be, I did it the last time, I think it was like 4 to 6. And we had like refreshments, refreshments. And
do we have a budget? We can
Also
afford to do that?
use-
I don't think it's a problem, is it?
I'm sorry?
We have a budget, now we can afford to do a couple, because we don't have that in our...
We can certainly do that.
Okay,
yeah.
no problem.
So this would be a village-sponsored event, the village would be hosting it?
Yeah, we'll be the village hosting it. I don't, unless the village doesn't want to do it, I can do it myself. And I also want to be able to use the projector, which they always allow me to use. So I think it's just that we need to do this stuff as a village, instead of just as,
If you, since you're going to do the event, just like Commissioners, I'd like to go ahead and have you run the event, because at the end of the day, this is your event, sort of, and I think that would be better.
As long as I can work with the village manager
Absolutely.
to be sure that it's done right. Because if I do send invitations out, I'm going to be sending it to Commissioner Samaria and the Village of Biscayne Park. So I need the Village of Biscayne Park to give me permission.
I think you can just do it as a commissioner. I mean, it's up to my co-counsel, but I think you can do it as a commissioner from the Village of Biscayne Park.
It could go either way, just whatever the decision is, just make it clear here
Yeah.
as to what it is, so that it's not later, the notices went out incorrectly, it shouldn't have said this, it should have said that. It should be clear, that's all.
That's what I said. I would have the city manager and work with the city manager on it. I just think this is something that we need to start doing. We need to start having ceremonies, because every Memorial Day, where do I go? To North Miami or another city, and I think we should start holding events here. And you'll get a lot more people outside coming to our events there. That's just something.
Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem if Vice Mayor Samaria, if you want this to be presented as the Village of Biscayne Park Commission presents this, then all I can say is thank you for including the rest of us, because this was your event. I appreciate it. I mean, I was there when it happened, saw the buildings collapse, had someone that was lost. So I appreciate it. I mean, if that's how you want to do it and you want to include all of us in it.
I want to include the residents and everybody. I want this to be a village event. People member stuff in their own ways, especially parents that have kids. One thing I learned about my collection is the kids weren't around when this happened, and we need to start educating kids not to forget, So that's just something that I think I can do it myself and make it glory for myself, but I'd rather have the whole village.
You were discussing the time, and you're saying what day is?
It's on the 8th. I didn't want to do it on a Saturday because September 11th falls on, I think, Wednesday. So, I didn't want to come back in front of the commission on September. Usually we come in September to get the permission to do all of this stuff. This time I want to do it a month ahead of time. So I was figuring a Sunday. I had a pretty good, between 4 and 6, I had a pretty good turnout for short notice. If I would have had a bigger notice, I would have had a lot more people. And I would have been able to, what I like to talk to the chief separately would be, I like to get an honor guard. I mean, I really would like to.
If there's no objection, just because time's getting short.
No, I understand.
If there's no objection, Commissioner Tudor, you're the only one who haven't spoken, so.
Yeah, no, I think it would be good. I know Vice Mayor Samaria has his individual exhibit that he puts on every year, which I commend him for, and I would like to see the village stepping forward and presenting something, having, whether it's something in the morning or a sunset service, something that the village can put on to commemorate that day. And, you know, and hopefully what we could see is that continue on for other events that you see in other municipalities. So, no, I completely understand and agree with Vice
So
Mayor
there's,
Maria.
so there's consensus to move forward with it then?
Yeah.
Both items?
Okay,
Yes.
so we want to pick a time, so
I think you'd pick the time, September 8th, 4 to 6.
4 to 6, everybody agree with that?
Yeah, I'm fine
Yes,
with
fine.
that.
4 to 6,
Okay. Thank you, Village Attorney.
We went through most of these updates already. I just want to, I've already spoken with Mr. Hernandez about it, but there's a new state law effective July 1st in the state of Florida regarding tree trimming and on residential properties. I would just ask that the commission review it. Doesn't have to be today, I'm just bringing it to your attention because it's a new law. And it may preempt certain language in your current code. So it would be a very, very minor amendment. I think it's really a strike through and adding a new subsection, but please take a look at it. Public Works already knows about it. They've been informed about what the law is now, so this is more just an update. It's a new law.
And it preempts us, correct?
Yes, it's a state law.
Thank you.
Currently, just to clarify, your code currently defers to Miami-Dade County, but now the state's weighed in on some residential tree trimming issues, so it should be consistent with what the state says. Just an update.
Thank you.
And we went through most of these other items throughout the meeting. The proposed, the discussion item from the workshop 2-30, I included the amended draft. We're still in discussion phase, but that's attached. I thought it was a really productive workshop, and I would like to know if we're going to set it for a second workshop or discussion at some point. I thought it was a very productive workshop, and I think the commission should keep up the momentum. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah, I think that was addressed earlier by Commissioner Tudor, that yes, we do need to set that workshop date, and perhaps the village manager can work with the village clerk on getting a date certain to go through.
We can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Just some housekeeping items. The advisory boards, the village clerk circulated some ethics training dates.
It's
I
set
know-
up for August 20.
August 20th?
Yes.
And there are some individuals who aren't going to be able to attend. I think a few residents have emailed in. We're going to try to obtain the materials to keep on file should any board member request them or want to reference them later. So that's good.
Thank you, village
You have ordinances here? The
Ordinance?
proposed ordinance amendment, section 230?
Oh, that's just that discussion draft towards the back from the workshop. I was in at the conclusion of the workshop. I was told by the commission, make the revisions we talked about, circulate it for discussion. So I'm just including that in my updates because I did what I was asked to do, and I think that's going to be another workshop at some point. So that's just in the sunshine.
This part of the same workshop. It's going to be the same workshop.
Okay. FEMA, so we're still waiting. One of the three was approved. 28,000 was the amount at issue in the appeal. FEMA approved the full 28,000. I show that it's ready to pay, but I don't know that once the payment's in that status, how long it takes for FEMA to cut the check. I checked. Okay. The other two appeals were much larger in terms of supporting documents, like thousands of pages bigger. So I'm not surprised that we don't have a response yet. I mean, DEM warned us that those would probably take a few months. DEM will be providing us quarterly updates as they receive them from FEMA. So I don't think it's been 3 months yet, but we're approaching that. So for the next meeting, I will probably have an update from DEM as to the status of FEMA's review of those two pending appeals, and hopefully we get the check on the approved appeal. That would be great.
Did they give you an idea if they were going to approve the other two? Do we have any idea?
That's not how they rule.
The other two?
We know the state of Florida has recommended
Right.
that
Yes.
they be approved, but we've not heard from FEMA yet.
And since the issue in all three appeals are the same two contracts, and FEMA's approved the smallest one, I'm hopeful that they're going to follow suit and be consistent. If they're consistent, then the other two should be approved. If the other two are not approved for some reason, then FEMA would be issuing inconsistent findings as to those two contracts because they granted the first one, and they're the same two. It's BC Peabody and Grubbs at issue in all three appeals, the same exact contracts, just different time periods and amounts. So There's a ransomware issue in the state of Florida right now. Municipalities are being held hostage, and they're paying the ransom. I think Key Biscayne paid almost $1 million recently.
Riviera Beach was 600,000, I believe.
Yeah, it's really serious. I know it came up at your clerk's conference recently. So the Florida League of Cities has been on it. There's been trainings. As I get them, I've been circulating them to department heads and to the commission if there's interest. So we're aware of it. I know the manager's working with the IT professionals on it to button up and try to keep the village safe. So that's just an update. I don't know if anyone was aware of the ransomware issues, but they're very serious, and it's happening like right now.
Yeah, I've been in conversations with, I think, both of you, but also with the manager on steps we need that other cities have taken to help ensure or better secure networks and things.
And we have already taken a number of steps. I mean, the most visible is that our guest Wi-Fi in all of our buildings is gone. It's now locked down with passwords. There's no open access to the village internet at this time.
So that means that the residents can use the rec center and use the internet.
They can't use the internet there currently. We're going to look at the rec center. We're going to look at getting a separate Wi-Fi for that doesn't go through the villages at all, so that no one can get in, use that as a door into our server.
And that is the recommendation that has been made about multiple. I've read multiple, multiple IT. Also talked to some folks in IT, but the idea is the diversification. And I think I sent you both an article, and I'm happy to share that article with the commission if they'd like.
But we've done a number of things to button this down. That's just the visible one. I don't want to go into detail on all of them, but we are taking this extraordinarily seriously. And because these people that are essentially ransoming
whole governments,
municipal websites, or municipal governments, they shut everyone out of all their email, all their computers, everything, until you pay. And we don't want to be in that position. Nothing's 100%, but we're locking it down as tightly as we can.
Thank you.
And my last, unless there's more questions on the ransomware update, my last is more of a question. So, and it kind of came up. So,
if you get the mic, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. The construction ordinance. Our current directive is to hold off for budget reasons. I just want to be in the sunshine about that. That's why it's not being worked on right now. If we're to pick up the pace and go back to this fiscal year, which means before October 1st, I would need a directive from the commissioner, the manager. But currently, it's not being worked on because we were told not to for budget reasons. Just wanted to get a concern about that.
If we need to wait because of budget, I guess we'll have to wait. We waited this long. I guess another couple months isn't going to make that huge of a difference.
For whatever it's worth, if we started working on it in September, that wouldn't go out until the October bill. I mean, if you see how we bill every month for the month before. October 1st is your new fiscal year. So if our directive is to hold off till September, that's fine. That's why the construction ordinance.
Well, but if you bill it as a September, it will still go on this year's budget.
Oh, I see.
So we would have to start at October 1st.
And I think we need to have that discussion that we've all talked about billing and where we're going to be and how that's going to look in the future. So,
okay, well,
are we in agreement on that to hold off?
That's fine. Okay.
Hold off. Yes.
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 Okay. Those are all my answers.
Thank you. All right. So we have only just a few minutes left. So, board committee reports, none. You have. I'm sorry. Go ahead. If you don't mind, I just apologize. We have 6 minutes left. So. Thank you, or we'll have to just ask again.
For the Park and Parkways Board, the board made a motion to strongly recommend that to the commission that the highest priority should be to install lighting at the log cabin first and not at the recreation center. We should use the services of a landscape architect to design the lighting and pathways to the entrance and parking. In 2014, the Foundation donated $2,000 that was going to be matched by the village to provide lighting at the rec center. And at that time, we used to use the rec center for evening meetings. We don't, and now we use the log cabin this is a liability. You don't need risk management to tell you that the parking, the pathways need to be lit. And sometimes priorities change, and I think you should really consider doing this first. And if you do it at the rec center, you're going to be destroying the landscaping that was put in for really no reason. Thank you.
Thank you. We can take this up next meeting. I concur. That is an important piece, and thank you for bringing it forward. Can we move off commissioner comments and go directly to announcements, if we may?
Yes.
Yes? Because we're out of time?
No further comments.
Okay. Announcements?
Okay, Biscayne Park Foundation on Monday, August 12, 2019, 7 p.m. Code Compliance Board, Monday, August 12, 2019, 7 p.m. Public Art Advisory Board, August 14, 2019, 6 p.m. Was canceled. Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, Monday, August 19, 2019, 6:30 p.m. Parks and Parkway Advisory Board, Wednesday, August 28, 2019, 7 p.m. Public Safety Advisory Board, Wednesday, August 28, 2019, 7 p.m. The second workshop budget fiscal year 2019-2020 will be on Wednesday, August 14, 2019, 6:30 p.m. The first budget hearing on fiscal year 2019-20 is going to be on Tuesday, September 10, 2019, 6:30 p.m. Next regular commission meeting will be on Tuesday, September 10th, 2019, 7 p.m. The second budget, the fiscal year 2019-2020 hearing is going to be on Friday, September 20, 2019, 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second? Hold on. Hold on.
The last Parkway meeting, we discussed that we were going to change the timing.
I need you to go quick because we have literally 3 minutes left.
If you're announcing it for August 28th.
Some Parkways meeting, they decided to change the time of the meeting to 5:30 as opposed to 7 p.m.
5:30.
Okay. Thank you for that.
That was approved by the board.
Okay. Thank you so much for letting us know.
Okay.
Thank you. Now is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? You can't make a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Tudo.